Chapter 2353. You can search for Nine Heavens Divine Dragon Technique in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. He was the emperor of 1,000 dragons, the person who controlled the 1,000 dragons' divine domain. However, he had never expected that the will of the 1,000 dragons' divine domain would be bestowed on someone else instead of him. He didn't even realize that this meant that he wouldn't be able to fully control the 1,000 dragons' divine domain. This was what worried him the most, what he couldn't tolerate the most. Who was the person who had unleashed that terrifying power? This was the second most important thing. If he could truly control the 1,000 dragons' divine domain, he wouldn't care about this power because the power of the entire 1,000 dragons' divine domain would be enough to defeat that person. After all, this was still within the 1,000 dragons' divine domain. Fortunately, the will of the 1,000 dragons' divine domain seemed to be very resistant to that power. The appearance of the will of the 1,000 dragons' divine domain was meant to resist that power by bestowing it on someone else. The emperor of 1,000 dragons felt a little relieved. If that wasn't the case, it meant that the will of the 1,000 dragons' divine domain had acknowledged someone else and didn't care about him at all. In that case, he wouldn't be able to become the true master of the 1,000 dragons' divine domain. He only controlled a part of the origin energy of the 1,000 dragons' divine domain. In fact, he hadn't even reached half of the origin energy. This was why his strength hadn't reached its peak yet. In fact, he couldn't even completely suppress the existence in the depths of the 1,000 dragons' imperial city. If that existence fought with him, who knew who would be the one who would die? Because of this, the emperor of 1,000 dragons couldn't wait to obtain the 1,000 dragon seal. Once he obtained the 1,000 dragon seal, he would be able to truly control the 1,000 dragons' divine domain and become the true master of the 1,000 dragons' divine domain. This formation prison won't be able to trap me. Brat, your time of death has come. At this moment, Tianlong Wuxian was incomparably domineering. His malevolent face was twisted as he walked step by step towards Yang Hongwu. However, Yang Hongwu wasn't afraid in the slightest. He raised his right hand and waved it slightly. A ray of light appeared once again, enveloping Sky Dragon Wuxian. You really won't be able to break this prison. If I didn't have the support of the will of the 1,000 dragon divine domain, I wouldn't have been able to restore the formation in a short period of time. It would have consumed a lot of my energy. However, now that I have the support of the will of the 1,000 dragon divine domain, it's a piece of cake for me to set up a formation prison like this. Moreover, this formation isn't as simple as it seems. I've integrated a killing formation into it. Yang Hongwu's hand lit up again as he spoke. As soon as the light entered the formation turned into a terrifying killing formation. Numerous terrifying battle blades shot towards Sky Dragon Wuxian. These battle blades contained terrifying power and were supported by the will of the 1,000 dragon divine realm. Yang Hongwu exclaimed inwardly. The 1,000 dragon divine domain was much stronger than the eternal god domain. Could it be because he hadn't truly gained control of the eternal god domain? This was possible. He was afraid that he had only seen the surface. The 13 divine regions weren't that simple. The 1,000 dragon divine domain was so strong, but the eternal god domain, even if it was slightly weaker, wouldn't be so weak. Perhaps he hadn't fully grasped the power of the eternal god domain. Could it be that the eternal god domain was like the 1,000 dragon divine domain and was hidden in the shadows? Could it be that what he saw was only a part of the eternal god domain, and what he controlled was only a part of it? Yang Hongwu didn't know the answer to that question, and it wasn't the time to think about it. Right now, he had to deal with Sky Dragon Wuxian first. Although Sky Dragon Wuxian looked powerful and invincible, he was actually an arrow at the end of its flight. Even if he could break out of the prison he had set up, it would consume a lot of his energy. He had burned his own origin energy, and it was impossible for his origin energy to be endless. It was impossible for him to fight against the will of the 1,000 dragon divine domain. After the will of the 1,000 dragon divine domain supported him, Yang Hongwu realized how powerful the 1,000 dragon divine domain was. The expert below the 1,000 dragon imperial city was actually a dragon pearl left behind by the previous ruler of the 1,000-dragon divine domain. This dragon pearl contained the lifetime strength of the previous ruler of the 1,000-dragon divine domain. Therefore, it was extremely powerful. It was even more powerful than the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons. The Emperor of 1,000 Dragons hadn't received the recognition of the previous ruler of the 1,000-dragon divine domain. Therefore, he couldn't truly control the 1,000-dragon divine domain and become its true ruler. He wanted to find the 1,000-dragon seal, but for some reason, he couldn't sense the existence of the 1,000-dragon seal. It was as if the 1,000-dragon seal was no longer in the 1,000-dragon divine domain. However, he didn't dare to enter the void. Moreover, the void was so vast that it would be like looking for a needle in a haystack if he entered the void to search for the 1,000-dragon seal. It was impossible to find any clues. In fact, he had a premonition that the 1,000-dragon seal should be in the 1,000-dragon divine domain. However, he hadn't been able to find it because the 1,000-dragon seal had hidden itself from him. Damn it! Sky Dragon Wushin was dumbfounded when he saw the prison formation appear again. Although he could break out of the prison formation again, it would consume a lot of energy. If he did it a few more times, his energy would be depleted and he wouldn't be able to deal with Yang Hongwu. He was furious, extremely furious, but there was nothing he could do. Moreover, this formation contained a killing formation that seemed to be even more powerful and domineering. He was caught off guard and several wounds were torn on his body by the killing formation. He felt that his energy was disappearing bit by bit as his energy was being sucked away. This time, he completely panicked. Not to mention opening the array formation, there was really no way out for him now. He would definitely die. He looked at Yang Hongwu, a young man in front of him. His cultivation realm didn't seem high, but his strength was terrifying and his methods were shocking. An outsider had entered the little sky dragon city and was able to summon the wind and rain. This little sky dragon city was already under his control. Such a person was too terrifying. He didn't know where he came from, but why did he have to go against him? Sky Dragon Wushen took a deep breath and looked at Yang Hongwu. He said, "You win. I just want to know where you came from. Who are you? That's not important. I just need this 1,000-dragon domain. Anyone who wants to touch it will have to die." Yang Hongwu said, "Haha, good. However, it won't be that easy for you to seize the 1,000-dragon domain. The Emperor of 1,000 Dragons isn't as simple as you think." After saying that, Sky Dragon Wushin disappeared into the void and was completely annihilated. 9 Heavens Divine Dragon Technique latest chapter address. 9 Heavens Divine Dragon Technique reading address. /55950 Heavens Divine Dragon Technique TXT download address. 9 Heavens Divine Dragon Technique mobile reading address. /55950 for the convenience of your next reading. You can click on the collect button below to record this time. You will be able to see it the next time you open the bookshelf. If you like 9 Heavens Divine Dragon Technique, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2354. You can search for 9 Heavens Divine Dragon Technique in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. That's it. Seeing this scene, Huang Yiwen and the others were dumbfounded. Just a moment ago, the Great Abyss Devil had been so terrifying and overbearing, but now it was gone just like that. This was truly inconceivable. Yeah, that's it. Young Master's strength is unfathomable. Huang Yiwen said, "Third brother, if you want to live, you have to get Young Master's forgiveness. Otherwise, you'll die. Do you know that I want to crush you to death?" Huang Tianhua smiled bitterly in his heart. "I'll atone for my sins. I hope Young Master can forgive me." At this moment, Yang Hongwu waved his hand. A bright light appeared in the void. It was a huge seal. The seal flew towards Yang Hongwu and disappeared into his palm in an instant. That's the 1,000-dragon seal. It's really the 1,000-dragon seal. I didn't expect it to recognize its master. Young Master has gained its recognition. Huang Yiwen was even more surprised to see this. The 1,000-dragon seal was the core of the 1,000 Dragons divine realm, so it was extremely difficult to gain its approval. In fact, it was almost impossible to even see it. Who would have thought that the Thousand Dragon seal would fly out of its own accord and acknowledge him as its master? This meant that Yang Hongwu was the true master of the Thousand Dragons' divine domain. Countless experts had appeared in the lesser Sky Dragon City. Even the Thousand Dragons Emperor had come here before. However, he didn't gain the recognition of the Thousand Dragons seal. Now that Yang Hongwu was here, the Thousand Dragon seal appeared and recognized him as its master. In fact, what Huang Yuan and the others didn't know was that Yang Hongwu had received the blessing of the Thousand Dragons' divine domains while in the lesser Sky Dragon City. This meant that Yang Hongwu had gained the recognition of the Thousand Dragons Emperor. As long as he could obtain a part of the Thousand Dragons Emperor's origin, he would be able to control the Thousand Dragons' divine domain and become its master. However, the Emperor of a Thousand Dragons was not easy to deal with. It would be very difficult to snatch the source energy from him. It would not be that easy. After all, a mere Sky Dragon City Lord was already so difficult to deal with. Of course, this guy was also a demon from the Abyssal race. His strength was incompatible with the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm. If it wasn't for the support of the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm's origin intent, it wouldn't have been easy for Lin Yun to deal with this guy. However, the Emperor of a Thousand Dragons was different. That guy probably had his own trump card. After all, Heavenly Dragon Wushan had told him that the Emperor of a Thousand Dragons was not simple. Hence, he was sure that the Emperor of a Thousand Dragons was not easy to deal with. As the saying goes, a dying man speaks the truth. Although Sky Dragon Wushan was from the Abyss race, Yang Hongwu believed that he wouldn't lie to him. He had the help of the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm's origin intent to deal with Sky Dragon Wushan. However, he definitely wouldn't have the support of the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm's origin intent to deal with the Emperor of a Thousand Dragons. After all, the Emperor of a Thousand Dragons was half the master of the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm. Hence, the origin intent of the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm wouldn't be so unfair. Of course, unless there was an accident. For example, if the Emperor of a Thousand Dragons did something unfavorable to the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm, the origin intent of the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm would hate him. In that case, the Emperor of a Thousand Dragons might be resisted or even suppressed by the origin intent of the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm. However, the possibility of this happening was minuscule. If the Emperor of a Thousand Dragons really did something unfavorable to the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm, he would have been resisted by the origin intent of the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm. Given the Emperor of a Thousand Dragon strength, he probably wouldn't be able to suppress the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm. Even if he was a universe overlord, he definitely wouldn't be able to do so. In fact, even an invincible overlord wouldn't be able to do so unless he was a void overlord. However, if the Emperor of a Thousand Dragons was a void overlord, would he care about a mere Thousand Dragon Divine Realm? Yang Hongwu didn't believe this. A void overlord would covet the entire Divine Realm, but it definitely wouldn't be limited to a mere Thousand Dragon Divine Realm. Or perhaps the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm was just the beginning? However, Yang Hongwu didn't think so. In fact, many special existences had appeared in the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm. One of them was Xinyuan Long, and the other was Feng Xiaoru. Feng Xiaoru had wanted to scheme against Luo Yunyang, but unfortunately, he hadn't succeeded. On the contrary, he had suffered a great loss and allowed Luo Yunyang to obtain the All-Spirits Prison. As for Xinyuan Long, he had sought refuge with Luo Yunyang. However, for some unknown reason, Xinyuan Long had left. Although Xinyuan Long had said so, Yang Hongwu still had some doubts about his words. As for the specific reason, Yang Hongwu didn't know. Although he had some guesses, he couldn't be sure. Of course, this wasn't a big deal to Yang Hongwu. So what if Xinyuan Long left? He didn't lose anything. On the other hand, Yang Hongwu was still a little worried about Feng Xiaoru's true body. Luo Yunyang had stolen Feng Xiaoru's supreme treasure and schemed against him in the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm. It would be strange if Feng Xiaoru didn't make a move after Luo Yunyang entered the void. However, Although Yang Hongwu was a little worried, he wasn't afraid. Feng Xiaoru might bring him some trouble, but it definitely wouldn't be fatal. Yang Hongwu had absolute confidence that he could deal with Feng Xiaoru. It was just Feng Xiaoru. If he couldn't even deal with Feng Xiaoru, how could he deal with the even more terrifying enemies in the future? After Yang Hongwu received the approval of the Thousand Dragon Seal, he refined it instantly. At the same time, Yang Hongwu felt the connection between himself and the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm. The Thousand Dragon Divine Realm was now under the control of several people. It wasn't just the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons. Yang Hongwu hadn't expected this at all. Originally, Yang Hongwu had thought that the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons only controlled a part of the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm. However, he hadn't expected that there were other people besides the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons who also controlled a part of the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm's origin. The origin intent of the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm seemed to have no moral integrity. How could it recognize so many masters? However, Yang Hongwu chuckled when he thought about it. This probably wasn't up to the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm. Although the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm was a legacy left behind by a powerhouse, there were some things that the will of the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm couldn't control. If these people were strong enough, the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm wouldn't be able to do anything. The will of the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm might have been born later. Regardless, these people who controlled a part of the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm's origin were his enemies. If they blocked his path, he would have to let them go. If he didn't, he would die. The latest chapter of the Nine Heavens Divine Dragon Technique. The full text of the Nine Heavens Divine Dragon Technique. /55950 The Nine Heavens Divine Dragon Technique TXT download address. The Nine Heavens Divine Dragon Technique mobile reading address. /55950 To make it easier for you to read it next time, you can click on the Collect button below to record this time. The Thousand Dragon Seal recognizes a master. You will see it the next time you open the bookshelf. If you like the Nine Heavens Divine Dragon Technique, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2355. You can search for Nine Heavens Divine Dragon Technique in Baidu. Search for the latest chapter. When the Thousand Dragon Seal recognized its master, the entire Heavenly Dragon City was filled with heavenly phenomena. The entire Thousand Dragons Divine Region was celebrating. This meant that the ruler of the Thousand Dragons' divine domain had been born. In reality, the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons wasn't the true ruler of the Thousand Dragons' divine domain because he couldn't obtain the Thousand Dragon Seal. Therefore, he wasn't the rightful ruler of the Thousand Dragons' divine domain. However, the person who had obtained the Thousand Dragon Seal's approval was the rightful ruler. It was like an emperor in the mortal world. If he didn't have the Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal, he wouldn't be able to be the rightful ruler. Therefore, when the Thousand Dragon Seal recognized its master, a phenomenon appeared in the sky. Of course, this phenomenon was sensed by all the experts in the Thousand Dragon Divine Domain. How could there be no phenomenon when the ruler of the divine domain appeared? Some ancient experts were guessing whether the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons had obtained the Thousand Dragon Seal's recognition and became the true ruler of the Thousand Dragon Divine Domain. But at this moment, only the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons knew that he was the unlucky one. The Thousand Dragon Seal didn't recognize him at all. It was someone else. It could be said that he hated that person to the bone. That person had actually snatched his Thousand Dragon Seal and wanted to compete with him for the right to control the Thousand Dragons' divine region. That person was his greatest enemy, and it was either you die or I die. Kill him. Only by killing that person could he truly control the Thousand Dragon Divine Domain and become the true ruler of the Thousand Dragon Divine Domain. Only then could all his plans continue. Otherwise, all his plans would fail. Thinking of this, the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons' eyes flashed with terrifying killing intent. Senior brother, it's me. At this moment, the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons was preparing to go out and look for the person who had snatched his Thousand Dragon Seal. Suddenly, he heard a voice from outside. It was his junior brother, Jin Wuong. Junior brother, You must have noticed that the Thousand Dragon Seal has recognized its master. It's not me. The Emperor of 1,000 Dragons said coldly. Yes, senior brother, I know. I'm here to tell senior brother about this matter. Jin Wang said, I have a disciple from Little Yellow Dragon City, and he has information about the Thousand Dragon Seal. I didn't have time to tell senior brother about this, but I didn't expect that the Thousand Dragon Seal had already recognized a master. You have news. The Thousand Dragons Emperor looked at the Golden Dragon King and asked, Do you have news about the master of the Thousand Dragons Seal? Although the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons could vaguely sense the existence of the owner of the Thousand Dragons Seal, he couldn't find the exact location because the owner's aura had been hidden in that instant, making it impossible for him to find the owner. Therefore, he needed to spend some time and energy to find that person. Yes, if I'm not wrong, that should be the case, Jin Wang said. I shall see who it is that dares to snatch food from me, the Thousand Dragons monarch before me. The eyes of the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons were filled with killing intent. This hatred was not any weaker than the hatred of killing one's father or stealing one's wife. To cultivators, this was the most profound and greatest kind of hatred. It was a hatred that would not rest until one of them was dead. Of course, if the difference in strength was too great, it would be a different story. In the face of sufficient strength, any hatred was fake. The only real thing was to preserve one's life. However, the strength of the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons was extremely strong. In this deity domain, he wasn't afraid of anyone. That was the reason why he dared to say such words. The news of the Thousand Dragon Seal is in the Little Sky Dragon City. Jin Wang said, The appearance of the phenomenon should be there as well. I didn't expect it to happen so quickly. Otherwise, I would have sent a message to senior brother. This is my fault. It doesn't matter. Even if you send a message to me in time, it won't change the outcome. The Emperor of 1,000 Dragons shook his head. In fact, he knew that the Little Sky Dragon City was extremely complicated. There were several powerful existences in the Little Sky Dragon City that even he had to be wary of. In fact, the Little Sky Dragon City was connected by the void. There was a void passageway that was one of the few passageways in the entire Thousand Dragons' divine domain. This passageway was filled with danger. If one wasn't careful, there would be a huge problem that could endanger the entire Thousand Dragons' divine domain. However, he had never imagined that the Thousand Dragon Seal would be in Little Sky Dragon City. If he had known, he would have chosen to take complete control of Little Sky Dragon City, no matter the price he had to pay. However, it was too late for regrets now. Let's go to the Little Sky Dragon City. Let's see who is so bold. Is it one of those old antiques? The Emperor of 1,000 Dragons said coldly. To him, no matter who the other party was, they were all his enemies and had to die. Yes, senior brother. Jin Wang nodded and followed closely behind. At the same time, Yang Hongwu was listening to Huang Tianhua kneeling on the ground, begging Yang Hongwu to spare his life. Young master, my nephew has already gone to the Thousand Dragons Imperial City and informed his master, Jin Wang, who is also the junior brother of the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons. Huang Tianhua said, Jin Wang, the junior brother of the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons? Doesn't this mean that the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons already knows about this and is probably on his way here? Yang Hongwu narrowed his eyes and a cold light flickered. Although it was only a matter of time before he faced the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons, he didn't expect that it would come so soon. He didn't have much time to prepare. Originally, if Yang Hongwu had some time to prepare, he would be fully confident in dealing with the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons. However, if he had to face the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons now, it would be troublesome and he would suffer some losses. This battle wouldn't be so easy. Young master, that little bastard, I will personally take action and end his life. Fearing that Yang Hongwu would be angry, Huang Yuan spoke out at this time. After all, Huang Yuan was his third brother. Among the three of them, the eldest brother was already dead. Now, only the two of them were left. Originally, they had quite a number of brothers, but after so many years, only the three of them were left. Moreover, the eldest brother had already died. Huang Yuan didn't want to see his only brother die just like that. Even if there were times when he was angry with his third brother and couldn't wait to kill him personally, they were still blood brothers after all. Get up. Even if Huang Xiaochuan didn't say anything, the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons would know about this matter sooner or later. It's just a matter of time. Yang Hongwu said, I hope that you won't be disloyal in the future. If that's the case, there might be an opportunity. After saying that, Yang Hongwu waved his hand, and the formation of the lesser heavenly dragon city changed. The scene outside appeared in front of everyone's eyes. At this moment, outside the lesser heavenly dragon city, countless powerful auras were rushing over. Yang Hongwu finally understood that it was the 1,000 Dragon Seal that caused the heavenly dragon anomaly, causing many experts to come here to look for opportunities and supreme treasures that caused the heavenly dragon anomaly. Under the lesser heavenly dragon city, a powerful aura had also awakened. This was a truly terrifying expert. This aura made people tremble a little. Many creatures were unable to move under this overbearing aura. 9 Heavens Divine Dragon Technique Latest Chapter Address. 9 Heavens Divine Dragon Technique Reading Address. /55950 Heavens Divine Dragon Technique TXT Download Address. 9 Heavens Divine Dragon Technique Mobile Reading Address. /55950 For the convenience of reading next time, you can click on the Collect button below to record this time. Unknown Strength. Reading Record. You can see it the next time you open the bookshelf. If you like 9 Heavens Divine Dragon Technique, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2356. Yang Hongwu narrowed his eyes and said, It seems that he has also woken up. This is a real master in my opponent. This aura is truly powerful. It's too terrifying. Young master, where did this expert come from? Huang Yuan asked. I don't know, Yang Hongwu said, but I think he's a universe overlord. He's been sleeping here to recuperate because of his injuries. Now that I've been recognized by the 1,000 Dragon Seal as its master and become the master of this space, he has no choice but to wake up. I've infringed on his interests, so he has no choice but to wake up. No matter who he is definitely not as strong as you, master. Moreover, as you said, that guy is just an injured master who is in a deep sleep. He is an outdated figure. It will be easy for you to deal with him, Huang Tianhua said. Yang Hongwu smiled when he heard this. This guy was flattering him. Yang Hongwu knew that this was why those emperors always liked those who were eloquent but had no ability. They were also the so-called treacherous officials. It was probably the same reason. Everyone liked the feeling of being flattered by others. Yang Hongwu didn't want to waste his time. Yang Hongwu didn't want to waste his time with the emperor. He didn't want to waste his time with the emperor. Even Yang Hongwu himself was the same. After all, he was a powerful practitioner. No matter what state of mind he was in, he would still feel this way. No matter how powerful he was, there would always be times when he was in a bad mood. Therefore, it was good to have someone who was eloquent by his side. Of course, if this guy dared to plot against him again, he would definitely die. A cold light flashed in Yang Hongwu's eyes. He said, You're thinking too simply. This cultivator is not so easy to deal with. However, now is not the time for me to make a move. Someone will test this guy for me. It's not bad to be a fisherman for once. After Yang Hongwu finished speaking, he completely hid his aura. His entire person was like an ordinary person who had never cultivated before. This made Huang Yuan and the others extremely shocked. If they hadn't clearly seen that Yang Hongwu was still here, they would have almost thought that Yang Hongwu had already left. This kind of secret technique was too terrifying and powerful. Master, where's the person you're talking about? Huang Yuan asked. Ah Wu, who do you think it is? Lu Yu asked curiously. Of course it's my enemy. The person we're looking for this time is already here. Let him test the waters. Yang Hongwu said and waved his hand, hiding the aura of Lu Yu, Zi Xintong, Huang Yuan, and the others. They didn't have the aura of the 1,000 Dragon Seal on them. They didn't have the origin energy of the 1,000 Dragon Divine Domain, so they just needed to hide it. That person wouldn't attack them. In that person's eyes, only those with the 1,000 dragon seal and the origin energy of the 1,000 dragon divine domain were worthy of his attention. He wouldn't care about the others. Emperor of 1,000 dragons? You mean the Emperor of 1,000 dragons? Zi Xintong asked. Yes, the Emperor of 1,000 dragons. His strength is not bad. He is already here. After Yang Hongwu said that, a tyrannical power appeared. A portal appeared in the sky. When the portal appeared, two people appeared. One of them was wearing a golden robe and was incomparably majestic, filled with the aura of an emperor. The other person was also wearing a golden robe, but he was wearing a battle armor. These two people were the Emperor of 1,000 dragons and Jin Wuwang. Young master, they're the Emperor of 1,000 dragons and Jin Wuwang. They are here because of our good-for-nothing nephew. At this moment, Huang Yuan said, It doesn't matter. You deal with your nephew yourself. Yang Hongwu said, Don't worry, young master. I will personally end that little bastard. Huang Tianhua's eyes flashed with killing intent. He had already made his choice, so he wouldn't show any mercy. Huang Yuan also had the same thought. A nephew was still a nephew. Moreover, it wasn't clear whether this nephew was his own or not. Maybe he was the descendant of that damned demon from the Abyss clan. The aura of the 1,000 dragon seal is hidden. I can't sense it. The Emperor of 1,000 dragons frowned slightly. However, he realized that there was a tyrannical aura in Little Sky Dragon City. This aura shocked him. He was definitely not a half-step universe overlord. His aura had clearly surpassed that of a half-step universe overlord. He had the aura of the 1,000 dragon seal and the aura of the 1,000 dragon divine domain origin. It was as though he had been bathing in the 1,000 dragon divine domain origin all this time. This person had probably been refining the 1,000 dragon seal all this time and had only succeeded in refining it now. Thinking of this, the Emperor of 1,000 dragons' eyes flashed with murderous intent. This guy had hidden himself too well. Previously, when he entered Little Sky Dragon City, he didn't notice his existence. Now, he had to appear because he had refined the 1,000 dragon seal and created a vision of heaven and earth. Otherwise, he would have continued to hide until his strength was greatly improved and he could completely control the power of the 1,000 dragon seal. Only then would he appear to oppose him and seize his opportunity. Just like the Emperor of 1,000 dragons, Brother Meng, who had just woken up, took a deep breath. He wanted to seize the 1,000 dragon seal. All this time, he had been using all his strength to suppress the 1,000 dragon seal. However, he didn't expect that the 1,000 dragon seal would be refined while he was in a deep sleep. How could he not be angry? More importantly, the aura of the 1,000 dragon seal had disappeared. He had paid such a huge price, but now, everything had become a wedding dress. Looking at the Emperor of 1,000 dragons in front of him, he was furious. If it weren't for his injuries, he would have killed this damned guy from the beginning. Emperor of 1,000 dragons, right? Hand over the 1,000 dragon seal, and I'll spare your life. Brother Meng came from Yin Huang, and the bloodline power in his body was very ancient. Although the bloodline power in his body was mixed, it was not inferior to the bloodline of the Emperor of 1,000 dragons in front of him. Brother Meng was the Emperor of the Mongol Empire in the Yin Huang world. He walked out of that world, entered this void space, and became a universe overlord. However, he was severely injured in a battle, so he had no choice but to enter this god domain. He was pleasantly surprised to find that in this god domain, his level wasn't suppressed like the other universe overlords. Instead, it could help him recover from his injuries. Hence, he had been hiding here all this time to heal his injuries. When he entered the 1,000 dragon domain, he found that it seemed to be very compatible with him, and it could help him recover better. Therefore, he had been hiding here. The error-free chapters of the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon Technique will continue to be updated in the hand-fighting bar. There are no advertisements in the website. Please bookmark and recommend the hand-fighting bar. If you like the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon Technique, please bookmark it. 9 Heavens Divine Dragon Technique is the fastest to update in the hand-fighting bar. Chapter 2357. Hearing Brother Ming's words, the Emperor of Thousand Dragons was dumbfounded. Brother Ming actually asked him for the Thousand Dragon Seal? If he had the Thousand Dragon Seal, he wouldn't have thrown Brother Ming out of the Thousand Dragons' divine domain. It was precisely because he wasn't strong enough and hadn't fully grasped the laws of the Thousand Dragons' divine domain that he didn't obtain the Thousand Dragon Seal. He didn't expect this guy to ask him for the Thousand Dragon Seal. However, the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons wasn't a fool. Since the person before him had said so, it couldn't be false. Most likely, the Thousand Dragon Seal was originally in this person's possession. Now that it had been lost, it had been obtained by someone else. That was why this expert was so angry. Furthermore, the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons possessed the source energy of 1,000 Dragons' divine domain. That was why he had been misunderstood by this expert. The Emperor of 1,000 Dragons wasn't afraid of the strong cultivator in front of him, and he might not be at a disadvantage if they fought. In fact, he was confident that he could defeat the strong cultivator with the help of the 1,000 Dragons' divine domain. However, the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons wasn't willing to become an enemy of such a strong cultivator at this moment. Moreover, this wasn't something he had done. He had come here for the 1,000 Dragons Seal. Of course, he didn't want to be the scapegoat. If he had obtained the 1,000 Dragons Seal for himself, he wouldn't mind fighting against such a strong cultivator. Great Being, please listen to me. Although I want the 1,000 Dragons Seal, it is not in my hands. Emperor of 1,000 Dragons was about to explain, but Brother Ming would not give him the chance to do so. Brother Ming was certain that he was the only one who had the aura of the 1,000 Dragon Divine Domain's origin and the 1,000 Dragon Seal. If it was not him, who else could it be? Brother Ming was a universe overlord. Although he had not recovered his cultivation in the 1,000 Dragon Divine Domain and could not fully exert the strength of a universe overlord, he was very confident in his own strength. Therefore, how could he change his mind about the things he had decided on? In his opinion, the reason why the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons was acting this way was just to avoid fighting him. Emperor of 1,000 Dragons was very afraid of his strength and did not dare to be his enemy. However, it was not easy for Brother Ming to leave so easily after taking his things. Who else could it be? I know you don't want to admit it, much less hand it over. But I'll make you hand it over. I just need to kill you. With that, Brother Ming attacked. He raised his hand, and a huge wolf fong saber appeared in his hand. This was Brother Ming's natal cardinal treasure. Behind him was a three-headed giant wolf. This was his natal beast. Both of them had the aura of universe overlords. Although they had not recovered to their peak and were suppressed by the laws of 1,000 Dragon Divine Domain, they were still extremely powerful. Ordinary half-step universe overlords would not be able to withstand their attacks at all. Although the difference between a true universe overlord and a half-step universe overlord seemed to be only one small realm, the difference was extremely frightening. The difference of a single line was the difference between heaven and earth. A terrifying aura burst out. With a wave of the wolf fong battle blade, a terrifying blade radiance appeared in the void, as if it was going to shatter this part of the world. Under this domineering power, the entire little sky dragon city was like a piece of tofu that could be cut open at any time. The Emperor of 1,000 Dragons and Jin Wuong's expression changed. Such strength was too overbearing, too strong. Moreover, this guy didn't seem to care about the losses of the 1,000 Dragon Divine Domain. To the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons, the entire 1,000 Dragon Divine Domain was his territory. If the 1,000 Dragon Divine Domain suffered a loss, it would be his loss. If this battle caused the 1,000 Dragon Divine Domain to suffer a great loss, it wouldn't be a good thing. Now, in the face of such a domineering attack, Little Sky Dragon City was going to suffer. Emperor of 1,000 Dragons could not say anything. He had no choice. In the face of such a domineering attack, Emperor of 1,000 Dragons could only take it. If he only relied on his own strength, it would be difficult for him to take such an attack. However, because he was the master of 1,000 Dragon Imperial City and 1,000 Dragon Divine Domain, and Little Sky Dragon City was one of the satellite cities of 1,000 Dragon Imperial City, he could still mobilize the power of Thousand Dragon Imperial City by paying a price. Originally, under normal circumstances, he would not be willing to use such a trump card. However, the opponent was too strong. If he did not use such a trump card, he would be injured. This was something he did not want to see at all. Once he was injured, the problem he would face would be even more troublesome. Moreover, if he did not use his trump card, he was not sure if he could defeat this great being in front of him. He had thought that the Thousand Dragon Divine Domain was under his control. Although there were some unknown experts, he had never imagined that these experts would be so terrifying and powerful. They were much more powerful than he had imagined. Now, in a mere little Sky Dragon city, there was already such a domineering expert. Then, would there be other great beings in other places? This was the part that gave Emperor of 1,000 Dragons a headache. If so many great beings were to appear, he would not be able to deal with them alone. Although there were great beings in Thousand Dragon Imperial City, there were not so many top experts. His junior brother, Jin Wuwang, was also very strong. However, if he were to face this great being in front of him, he would not have any chance of winning. Experts of the same level were too terrifying. Although he had been in control of Thousand Dragon Divine Domain for so many years, he had never discovered these hidden experts. If he had known this, he would have searched for them. Junior brother, step back first. Emperor of 1,000 Dragons knew that his junior brother's strength was not enough to deal with this great being. Therefore, when he saw that Jin Wuwang was about to take the attack, he said, "Senior brother, this man is very strong. I am afraid that only if you and I join forces, we will be able to defeat him quickly," said Jin Wuwang. "I alone am enough," said Emperor of 1,000 Dragons. The Emperor of 1,000 Dragons said, "There are still enemies hiding in the dark. The person who snatched the 1,000 Dragon seal most likely wants to benefit from it. His strength shouldn't be as terrifying as this expert. Otherwise, he wouldn't need to hide at all." "All right," Jin Wuwang nodded. "That good disciple of mine should be aware of the situation. It's just that he still needs time to rush over. After all, he's too weak. If I had known earlier, I would have given him an unlimited transmission treasure. That communication treasure was extremely precious. Generally, only those who were close to the family would be willing to give it to them. As for some disciples, if they were not important to them, they would definitely not be willing to give it out. After all, that kind of thing was even more precious than ordinary supreme treasures. Although it could be refined, it would require a great price to do so. 9 Heavens Divine Dragon Technique will continue to be updated. There will be no advertisements on the website. Please bookmark and recommend the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon Technique. If you like the technique of the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon, please collect it. Technique of the 9 Heavens Divine Dragon. Chapter 2358. At this time, Emperor of 1,000 Dragons had gathered the power of 1,000 Dragons Imperial City. The entire 1,000 Dragons Imperial City, together with the 49 satellite cities, was a powerful array. The power of this array was enough to allow Emperor of 1,000 Dragons to contend with a true universe overlord level great being. This was why Emperor of 1,000 Dragons was so confident. He knew that universe overlords were not allowed to exist in God domain. Even if there were, they would not be able to unleash the power of a universe overlord. However, it would cost a lot to unleash it just once. This was equivalent to using the power of his 1,000 Dragons Imperial City to resist. This was something he did not want to see, but there was nothing he could do. If he did not use it, he would not have enough power to deal with the attack of this great being in front of him. Formation, damned formation. At that moment, Mengu realized that the power of 1,000 Dragons Emperor had increased in an instant, and it could even threaten a great being at the level of a universe overlord. Although Mengu was a true great being at the level of a universe overlord, he had not fully recovered from his injuries. Besides, in this god domain, he could not fully exert the power of a universe overlord. Once he tried to exert the power of a universe overlord, he would be suppressed by the laws. Although this god domain did not reject or suppress him, If he wanted to unleash the power of a universe overlord, he would be restrained. This was the restriction of the laws of Thousand Dragons' divine domain, or even the entire God domain. Perhaps only by becoming the master of God domain could he remove this restriction. Or perhaps he could surpass universe overlords, surpass invincible overlords, and reach the level of void overlords. Perhaps he could do it, but he could not do it now. In fact, what Mengu didn't know was that even an invincible overlord's cultivation base would be suppressed in this divine realm. It was impossible to surpass the restrictions of this divine realm. Once this restriction was breached, one would be suppressed or be sent away. The power of the Thousand Dragons formation gathered and formed giant dragons. There were 49 giant dragons, which corresponded to the power of the 49 satellite cities. The power of each satellite city formed a giant dragon. When these 49 giant dragons gathered together, it was not as simple as 1 + 1. It had surpassed the limit of a great path knight and a half-step universe overlord. This power was at the level of a universe overlord. If you surrender to me now, I can show you mercy and spare your life, Emperor of 1,000 Dragons said coldly to Brother Meng. Today, either you die or I die. I'm a universe overlord. Although my strength is suppressed, I'm not that easy to deal with. Junior, I have to admit that your formation is very powerful. However, you have to pay a great price to activate such a formation. If you can't kill me with this strike, then you'll die. Brother Meng's eyes flashed with a cold light. He came from Yin Huang Great Universe and was a member of the Golden Clan. As a member of the royal family of the Golden Clan, he would never surrender. The royal family of the Golden Clan would only fight to the death. There was no such thing as surrendering. At this moment, Brother Meng went crazy. The giant golden wolf became stronger and more terrifying. Compared to the 49 giant dragons, its aura was not inferior at all. The giant wolf rushed forward and bit madly. This aura was the aura of a life-and-death battle. It was an aura of a life-and-death battle. This was Brother Meng's great path of the origin universe. If his great path of the origin universe was damaged, it would be extremely difficult for him to recover. These 49 giant dragons were the power of the origin of Thousand Dragons' Imperial City. It was the power of the origin that Emperor of 1,000 Dragons had accumulated for many years. Fighting like this would consume too much energy. Even if he won, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. He would still suffer heavy losses. Emperor of 1,000 Dragons' heart was bleeding. Was it necessary to fight like this? Why do you have to do this? You may be a universe overlord, but you haven't recovered from your injuries. Besides, this God domain doesn't allow the existence of universe overlords. With the help of this array, I'm invincible. However, if I defeat you, I'll have to pay a high price. At this critical moment, it's not worth it for me to consume a little bit of power unless I have no other choice. Besides, I'm also looking for the 1,000 Dragon Seal. Once I master the 1,000 Dragon Seal, I'll be able to truly control the 1,000 Dragon Divine Domain. If I get the 1,000 Dragon Seal, I won't need to use the power of the array to deal with you. Even so what? Brother Meng said coldly. Things had already reached this point, and he didn't care anymore. Now that things have come to this point, it's just a battle. Whether we live or die depends on fate. For Brother Meng, a battle was the only way to solve the problem. Emperor of 1,000 Dragons was helpless. This guy was simply stubborn. He knew that this wasn't the best solution, but he was still so stubborn. He couldn't help it. No matter what, he still wanted to fight to the death with him. This made Emperor of 1,000 Dragons especially annoyed. Why did this guy have to be like this? Well, since you insist on dying, I'll fulfill your wish. The Emperor of 1,000 Dragons. With a thought, the power of this formation was unleashed to the extreme. A terrifying aura burst out. All the power of the dragons gathered on the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons. At this moment, his entire body was like a huge sun containing terrifying power. He raised his hands, and all the power gathered in his hands. If you can withstand this attack, I'll let you go, Emperor of 1,000 Dragons said. There's no need. Today, either you or I will die. In any case, I'm afraid that I won't be able to recover from my injuries. Being able to fight like this before I die can be considered to have fulfilled my wish." Brother Meng sighed. In fact, he already knew that the one who had taken the Thousand Dragon Seal was not the Thousand Dragons Emperor before him. However, he was already nearing the end of his life and was only a dying man. As a universe overlord, how could he not be aware of the situation? Chapter 2359. Sensing this situation, Emperor of 1,000 Dragons was a little stunned. He had never thought that things would develop to this point. Moreover, he could vaguely feel that this person was determined to die. This wasn't a good thing for him at all. It seemed like this person wanted to perish together with him. Damn it, how could it be like this? This wasn't the result he wanted at all. Even if it was a battle, it shouldn't be a life and death battle. At their level of cultivation, if it wasn't a last resort, how could they use such a method of perishing together? Damn it, he really wants to perish together with me. At this moment, Emperor of 1,000 Dragons looked at Brother Meng's situation with an ugly expression. This was definitely not a good thing. Brother Meng's aura was constantly rising. If this continued, there wouldn't be a good result. To him, this wasn't a good thing. He had to stop Brother Meng from thinking of perishing together with him. However, this was also a very difficult thing to do. It wasn't that simple. It was like a person whose heart had died. It wasn't easy to revive him. Why do you have to do this? Why do you have to do this? Emperor of 1,000 Dragons kept resisting Brother Meng's attacks, as he kept saying, "It's just a battle to the death. There's no need to talk so much. Today, it's either you die or I die." With that, Brother Meng launched another frenzied attack. He was simply fighting with no regard for his life. The giant wolf in the sky once again displayed its might, becoming even more tyrannical and ferocious. This aura shocked all the experts present. When this tyrannical power erupted, many of them were affected. However, the power of this array formation of Emperor of 1,000 Dragons was really unimaginable. It was enough to contend against a universe overlord. Seeing this scene, Yang Hongwu's face turned slightly solemn. He couldn't understand why Brother Meng would still fight to the death, even though he knew that the person who seized the 1,000 Dragon Seal shouldn't be Emperor of 1,000 Dragons. Was it just for his face? No, it wasn't like that. At this level of cultivation, although face was important, one's life was more important. Unless he was at the end of his rope, it was impossible for him to do this. Therefore, there must be some reason behind Brother Meng's actions. There must be something that he couldn't say. Yang Hongwu had a hunch that Brother Meng was trying to hide something. He even thought that Brother Meng was trying to protect him. That was why he directly blamed the 1,000 Dragons Emperor for obtaining the 1,000 Dragon Seal. The 1,000 Dragon Seal seemed to be related to an important figure, or rather, a special expert who had his eyes on the 1,000 Dragon Seal. You are also an expert. I shall send you on your way then. I will do my best. The 1,000 Dragons Emperor spoke as he prepared to unleash his strongest attack. Something's not right. Suddenly, the 1,000 Dragons Emperor's face changed. He felt that the formation was no longer under his control. His control over the formation was weakening. This made him pale with fright. The entire formation of the 1,000 Dragons Imperial City was his foundation. It was his greatest trump card. If he couldn't control the formation, it would be equivalent to cutting off his foundation and cutting off his escape route. This formation was personally arranged by him. It was a formation that he had obtained from an ancient ruin. No one knew the essence of this formation. He had paid a huge price to arrange this formation. Moreover, the formation had fused with his spirit. In fact, it was equivalent to him being the core of the formation. Outsiders couldn't control the formation at all. Because of this, he was able to control a part of the power of the 1,000 Dragons' divine domain. Boom! At this moment, Brother Meng's giant wolf clashed with the 1,000 Dragons' Emperor's giant dragon. Brother Meng's giant golden wolf actually gained the upper hand. This sudden change left everyone dumbfounded. It was simply unimaginable. The 1,000 Dragons Emperor, who originally had the upper hand, was suppressed all of a sudden. The giant dragon was sent flying. Then, another shocking thing happened. Another small golden dragon appeared in the void. This small golden dragon's sharp claws immediately grabbed the giant golden dragon's body, tore off pieces of flesh, and directly devoured them. This scene enraged the Thousand Dragons Emperor. He didn't know who this small dragon was, but it had devoured the Thousand Dragons Emperor's own origin energy. One should know that this giant golden dragon was the condensation of the entire Thousand Dragons Imperial City. It was the condensation of the entire Thousand Dragons divine domain that he controlled. Once it was devoured, it meant that it was devouring his own strength and great Tao of origin. Logically speaking, this was a good thing for Brother Meng. However, Brother Meng's face turned even uglier when he saw the appearance of this small golden dragon. Gaining the upper hand was a good thing for him, but it wasn't necessarily a good thing. He was already nearing the end of his lifespan and had always wanted to die. When he saw the small golden dragon, he naturally knew that it was the person who had seized the Thousand Dragons seal. This person came from the same place as him and was his fellow countryman. The reason why he insisted that the Thousand Dragons seal had been seized by the Thousand Dragons Emperor and wanted to fight to the death with the Thousand Dragons Emperor was because this fellow countryman whom he had never seen before had given him a chance to live. However, he didn't expect that this fellow would appear at this time. Wasn't this walking right into a trap and asking for trouble? Sigh. He sighed and rushed up to attack the giant dragon that the Thousand Dragons Emperor had transformed into. Since he had already appeared, he might as well lend him a hand. This time, the Thousand Dragons Emperor, who was already at a disadvantage, was being devoured by the small golden dragon and attacked desperately by the giant golden wolf that Brother Meng had transformed into. At this moment, he was being suppressed to the point that he couldn't breathe. Originally, the Thousand Dragons Emperor's greatest trump card was the formation of the Thousand Dragons Imperial City. But now it was being suppressed. His formation was no longer under his control, and its power was being continuously extracted. Naturally, it was becoming weaker and weaker. Yang Hongwu's dragon soul was getting stronger and stronger, and his strength was also increasing. Soon, he entered the second level, Dao Master level. Although he was still very far away from becoming a great Dao Master and a half-step universe overlord, the increase in his strength was astonishing. It could be said that the Thousand Dragons Emperor was now a huge tonic that had given his dragon soul a terrifying boost. Yang Hongwu's dragon soul had been constantly improving because of the cultivation of the Nine Heavens divine dragon technique, but the speed of improvement was ultimately limited. This was because the improvement of the dragon soul required the power of the dragon soul. The power of the dragon soul was very rare, and the best place to improve it was the Thousand Dragons domain and the real Nine Heavens dragon domain. Now, he couldn't enter Nine Heavens dragon domain at all, and he couldn't find it. The Thousand Dragons domain was the best place to improve it. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 2360. This was something that had Yang Hongwu overjoyed beyond his expectations. To think that his dragon soul would receive such a huge boost in such a short period of time. This was something absolutely inconceivable. Therefore, at this very moment, Yang Hongwu was devouring the power of this dragon soul madly in order to strengthen his own dragon soul. Different from Yang Hongwu, the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons was completely stupefied. Right now, he could not control the formation. In fact, he could not even retract his power of the Tao Source. The power of his dragon soul was being devoured madly. With this, his strength was decreasing continuously. If this were to continue, he would truly be finished. However, even if he wanted to retreat, he couldn't do it. His Tao Source was already trapped. This could be said to be reaping what he sowed. After all, this formation of his was controlled by someone else, and his source was within the formation. This formation could not be opened and returned to control. Naturally, there was no way for him to break free and let his power of the Tao Source leave this formation. Crazy. He had gone completely crazy. His lifeline was being controlled by someone else. Right now, it could be said that his life was in the hands of someone else. This had the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons feeling infuriated in his heart. However, there was nothing he could do about it. Stop! Stop right now! The Emperor of 1,000 Dragons yelled out. If you don't stop, I'll take you down with me. The moment these words came out, everyone present was dumbfounded. At this moment, where did the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons have the might of an unparalleled sovereign? He was just like a stray dog that was kneeling down and begging for mercy. This was not the unparalleled sovereign that they had imagined. He was just like a hooligan whose life and death were being controlled by someone else. No one dared to believe that he was so cowardly. Stop! This is absolutely impossible to stop. At this moment, Yang Hongwu's voice rang out as he walked out. Since things had already come to this point, there was no need to hide anymore. Ice, you're too anxious. At this moment, Brother Meng spoke up. You want to fight with me? Yang Hongwu looked at Brother Meng. Are you a friend or foe? A friend, not a foe. You should be from the same place as me. I'm very familiar with your aura. It's the aura of that world. If my guess is correct, the 1,000 Dragon Seal should have been taken by you. In fact, if you didn't have my permission, although you could have obtained the 1,000 Dragon Seal, it wouldn't have been so easy. Do you understand? Brother Meng said this through voice transmission, so no one else could hear him. You're also from Yanhuang? Yang Hongwu asked. That's right, Mongol Empire. Brother Meng said, I'm a member of the Golden Clan. Now that I have reached the end of my life, I decided to lend you a hand since you have come here to obtain the 1,000 Dragon Seal. However, I did not expect that you would actually appear at this time. Do you know that you are asking for trouble? Senior, why do you say that? Yang Hongwu was slightly taken aback when he heard this. Then he said, currently, the 1,000 Dragons Emperor is under my control. If he does not activate the formation, it will be somewhat difficult for me to deal with him. In fact, if he was not so confident and arrogant when he was on guard, I would not have been able to control his formation so easily. Now, he no longer has the ability to retaliate in front of me. I have the upper hand, and he has no chance of making a comeback. The real threat isn't the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons. There's an expert in the 1,000 Dragons Imperial City who has been coveting the 1,000 Dragons Seal for a long time. If he makes a move, the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons won't be able to control a portion of the 1,000 Dragons' divine domain's origin energy. What he wants isn't just a part of the 1,000 Dragons' divine domain's origin energy, but the entire divine domain. He's the real terrifying existence and your greatest enemy. Now that you've appeared, I'm afraid he'll come as well. He's extremely powerful. Even at my peak, I might not be a match for him. Hurry up and leave this place. If you're too late, I'm afraid you'll be in trouble, Brother Meng explained. However, as soon as he finished speaking, Yang Hongwu sensed a terrifying power erupting from the 1,000 Dragons Imperial City. This terrifying power rushed over and broke through his control over the formation. It directly seized the control of the formation. Not good. My control over the formation has been taken away. Yang Hongwu had never imagined that there would be such an expert in the 1,000 Dragons' divine domain. His comprehension of the Tao of formations was even greater than his. This was something Yang Hongwu had never seen before. Throughout his journey, there might have been people who were stronger than him in other aspects, but he had never seen anyone who was stronger and more terrifying than him in terms of formations. This was what surprised him the most. This made him feel a great sense of crisis. Brother Meng wasn't lying. Trouble was really coming for him. Sai, it's too late now. Yang Hongwu smiled bitterly. That person has already taken control of the formation. I'm afraid I won't be able to leave even if I leave now. This time, a bitter battle is unavoidable. Despite saying that, Yang Hongwu wasn't afraid. He might not lose this battle. Even if he wasn't a match for his opponent in terms of formations, escaping wouldn't be a problem at all. If it was before, Yang Hongwu wouldn't have been so confident. However, he was confident now. Even if his opponent was an invincible overlord who could display his peak strength here, he would still be able to escape. Even if his opponent was an invincible overlord who was proficient in the Tao of formations, he would still be able to escape. This was because he had obtained an ancient formation. This ancient formation could travel through the void and teleport him into space-time. This formation was a truly powerful one. It was an existence that surpassed invincible overlords. It allowed him to search for the ancient divine talisman. If he couldn't win, he would use this formation to enter the ancient space-time and search for the information of the time divine talisman. In this way, he might not be able to return for a while, and might even face the threat of being lost in the endless river of time. However, if it really came to that point, there was nothing he could do. The divine talisman of time was a truly powerful divine talisman. The divine talisman he had sensed before was the immortal divine talisman. Now it was the divine talisman of time. Regardless of whether it was the divine talisman of time or the immortal divine talisman, they were both things he wanted. They were incomparably powerful supreme treasures of fortune. Such supreme treasures might even surpass the void realm. Chapter 2361. There's no need for that. Yang Hongwu shook his head. You won't be able to hold him back. He's extremely powerful. Besides, if I want to leave, no one will be able to stop me. Unless a void overlord appears, no one will be able to catch me. I'm very happy that you're so confident. However, although he's not a void overlord, he's definitely at the level of an invincible overlord at his peak, Mongo said. An invincible overlord isn't that simple. Moreover, this invincible overlord is actually a master of formations. He's an invincible overlord who has entered the Tao of formations. He's already at the peak of the Tao of formations. For countless years, very few people have been able to enter the Tao of formations and reach the level of an invincible overlord. He's the only one I've ever seen. It's almost impossible for you to escape from him using formations. These words made Yang Hongwu's expression change slightly. The Tao of formations. If this was really the case, then things would be a little troublesome. Could it be that the tracking formation of the divine time talisman had been created by this guy? If that was really the case, the trouble wouldn't be as simple as getting bigger. It would be extremely terrifying. A person who could comprehend formations to such a level had indeed surpassed him in terms of formations. If he really wanted to deal with him, he would have enough confidence to do so. If that was the case, it was no wonder that he could easily seize control of the great formation of the Thousand Dragons Imperial City. However, Yang Hongwu hoped that all of this wasn't true. At the very least, Yang Hongwu didn't think that this space-time traversing formation was created by the other party. If that was the case, it would be the most terrifying. Of course, the possibility of that being the case wasn't very high. If the other party really had such ability and strength, why would he still remain in the Thousand Dragons' divine domain? If his strength had reached such a level, why would he stay in the Thousand Dragons' divine domain for so long without finding the Thousand Dragons' seal? Therefore, the possibility of this happening was very small. Of course, this was not absolute. It was still possible for such a situation to happen. It was just that the probability was relatively small. Then I would like to meet him even more. My attainments in the Tao of formations are not low. If I can seize his great Tao of formations, perhaps my attainments in the Tao of formations can reach a higher level, Yang Hongwu said. Brother Meng was a little dazed after hearing this. He knew that Yang Hongwu was indeed quite proficient in formations. Before this, he had already noticed that Yang Hongwu had used formations to deal with the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons. If he had not controlled the formation of the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons, the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons would not have been defeated so easily. However, it was also because the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons had fallen to such a state that the person behind the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons had appeared. The reason why the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons was able to have his current strength was all thanks to that person. If it wasn't for that person, who knew where he would be now? How could he have become the famous Emperor of 1,000 Dragons? Therefore, no one knew exactly how strong the person behind the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons was. In fact, even the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons himself did not know. He did not know that he was being controlled in the palm of someone else's hand. My power? The Emperor of 1,000 Dragons realized that his power was flowing away. However, the power that he was losing was not being seized by Yang Hongwu. Instead, it was being seized by his formation and the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons. At this moment, he realized that he had always been a puppet that was being controlled by someone else. Thinking of this, the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons' heart turned to ashes. Although he had realized that something was wrong a long time ago, he had never thought that it would be so serious. It turned out that everything he had belonged to someone else. He was just a chess piece in someone else's hand. He, a dignified emperor, the lord of the 1,000 Dragons' divine domain, was actually a chess piece, a puppet in someone else's hand. If people knew about this, how unbelievable and tragic would it be? What a piece of trash. You can't even deal with a mere Tao sovereign kid. What use do I have for you? At this moment, the person finally revealed his true face. After this person appeared, his face made young Hongwu's eyes widen. He could not believe what he was seeing. "It's you, kid, you know me?" "No, it's impossible for you to know me," said the person. "Ying Long?" Yang Hongwu said. No, you're not Ying Long, so you've seen that guy before. Tell me, where's that guy?" Hearing the name Ying Long, the person's face darkened. A terrifying aura burst out and locked onto Yang Hongwu. Yang Hongwu was almost unable to breathe. This person was so powerful that it was terrifying. The aura that erupted from him caused the entire space to tremble as if it was about to shatter. This small sky dragon city seemed to be unable to withstand the impact of this terrifying power and was about to be destroyed. Sure enough, you're related to Ying Long. Although you're not Ying Long, your bloodline is closely related to him. Thinking of this, Yang Hongwu could not help but smile. As long as this guy was related to Ying Long, there was nothing to worry about. Moreover, judging from his tone, he seemed to have a deep grudge against Ying Long. Could this guy be Ying Long's twin brother? However, it did not seem like it. Ying Long's power was brighter and purer than this guy's. This guy's power seemed to carry some dark and evil power. It seemed to be the opposite of Ying Long's origin power. Could this guy be Ying Long's evil spirit, or one of the three corpses, the evil corpse? In the Pangi Yanhuang Great Cosmos, the three corpses Tao affirmation method was too common. In fact, it was the easiest method and its strength was passable. Back in the prehistoric era, the three corpses Tao affirmation method was basically used to affirm the Tao in that great cosmos. Ying Long, or rather, the Ying Long that he had seen before, might not be the real Ying Long, but just one of his three corpses. Thinking of this, Yang Hongwu became even more interested. You're Ying Long's evil corpse? Perhaps Ying Long's true body had fallen, and the three corpses had entered this world. Previously, he had seen Ying Long's good corpse. Now, he was seeing Ying Long's evil corpse. However, Ying Long's good corpse had already recognized him as its master. He knew that the evil corpse was also present and that the evil corpse would not be a threat to him. Furthermore, he was worried that the real enemy might be the enemy of Ying Long's true body. Thus, Ying Long had no choice but to leave. Perhaps this evil corpse was a trump card left behind by Ying Long's good corpse, because it had already recognized him as its master. Therefore, as Ying Long's evil corpse, this guy before him would not be a threat to him, and might even be of help. Chapter 2362. You want the 1,000 Dragon Seal? That's impossible. Now, the 1,000 Dragon Seal has recognized me as its master and has been refined by me. Yang Hongwu said, Then I'll kill you and take the 1,000 Dragon Seal. The evil corpse of Ying Dragon said, You don't have the ability to kill me. You're not Ying Dragon, but you're controlled by him. Even if your original body is not here, you're not the real Ying Dragon. You're just an evil corpse, and you'll be restricted. Yang Hongwu smiled faintly and said, If the good corpse of Ying Dragon dies, the original body and the ego corpse die, you might become the real Ying Dragon. However, the good corpse is not dead, and the ego corpse is fine. As for the original body, I don't know where it is. Maybe it's dead, maybe it's not dead. I don't know. But one thing is for sure, you'll be restricted by me now and can't attack me. Boy, you're too naive. That bastard told you everything, but so what? He's just afraid that I'll kill him, so he fled. Now, after I kill you, I'll extract your soul and take your memory. I can still find him. By then, I'll be able to improve again after devouring him. I'll even be able to return to my peak state. After saying that, the evil corpse of Ing Dragon rushed towards Yang Hongwu. He stretched out his hand and turned it into a dragon claw, grabbing at Yang Hongwu. However, Yang Hongwu did not dodge. When the dragon claw was about to grab him, it was unable to take another step forward. It seemed that there was an invisible force hindering it, but in fact there was no force at all. There was no hindrance at all. It was the dragon claw of the evil winged dragon that was restrained by itself. Master and slave contract. Damn it. How could that bastard sign a master and slave contract? An invincible overlord signed a master and slave contract with an early-stage down master cultivator. At that moment, Winged Dragon's evil corpse was infuriated. Although it and Winged Dragon's good corpse and self-corpse were all independent entities, if there were special circumstances and they had signed a master-slave contract, it would be impossible for it to attack that person. Once it attacked, it would be restricted. This was because if they wanted to sign a master-slave contract, it was very strict. They had to obtain the approval of the main body. Moreover, the other party had to be strong enough to surpass the peak of the main body. Only then could they sign a master-slave contract. Obviously, the boy in front of him was only a town master, but he had signed a master-slave contract with a good corpse or a self-corpse. He did not understand and dared not believe it, but the fact was there, and he had to believe it. At present, he had no way to kill the young man in front of him, who was only a down master. What's wrong? Didn't I say that you can't kill me? If you weren't related to Winged Dragon, you might be able to attack me. However, you are Winged Dragon's evil corpse. You can't change the fact that Winged Dragon himself has admitted it. Yang Hongwu laughed. Brat, don't be too proud. Although I don't know why that damned bastard signed a master-slave contract with you, and even succeeded, making it so that I can't violate the rules and kill you. Even if I can't kill you, I can still make you suffer. Even if I can't do it, can't others do it? Winged Dragon's good corpse's eyes flashed with cold light. He had retracted his sharp claws and looked at Yang Hongwu, full of killing intent. This boy must die. If he died, the person who signed a master-slave contract with him would also die, no matter if it was a good corpse or a self-corpse. As an evil corpse, although he would be injured and his vision would be damaged in a short time, in the long run, he could receive a part of the origin of the great ways of the universe from the good corpse or the self-corpse. In this way, his origin would be greatly enhanced, and his strength would be greatly restored and improved. Therefore, for him, the death of both the good corpse and the self-corpse would be of great benefit to him. However, their enemy was too strong. Although he had always wanted to kill the good corpse and the self-corpse, he could not do it. Moreover, if the good corpse and the self-corpse wanted to perish together with him, they could do it. Of course, this was also because the original body was seriously injured and could no longer control them. As an evil corpse, he had such self-consciousness. If the original body was strong, as an evil corpse, he would not have such thoughts. In fact, Winged Dragon's evil corpse was affected by the demonic thoughts in a battle, causing the evil corpse to have self-obsession. Such a situation was actually extremely rare. Only Winged Dragon's true body could resolve it. However, no one knew where Winged Dragon's true body had gone, nor did they know what the situation was like. However, one thing was certain: Winged Dragon's true body didn't seem to be in this world. What Yang Hongwu saw was not Winged Dragon's original body. It was only an incarnation left behind by Winged Dragon's original body. In fact, it was not the good corpse or the self-corpse. This incarnation left a part of Winged Dragon's original body's power and memory. However, the key memory was missing, which made the incarnation think that it was Winged Dragon's original body. The true strength of Winged Dragon was extremely powerful. Seal. The evil corpse of Winged Dragon snorted coldly. Then it formed a seal with both hands. A mysterious seal appeared and transformed into a huge net. It wanted to envelop Yang Hongwu and seal him inside. Yang Hongwu narrowed his eyes. He had no choice but to admit that Feng Xiaoru was extremely accomplished in the Dao formations. However, the truth was that Feng Xiaoru had not entered the Tao through formations. In terms of entering the Tao through formations, Feng Xiaoru was actually even more impressive. However, Feng Xiaoru was restricted too much in this world. Winged Dragon was different. He was a dragon. In this world, his strength was not restricted. As long as he did not break the limit of the 1,000 dragon divine domain, he could freely display his strength. The reason why the evil winged dragon corpse wanted to obtain the 1,000 dragon seal was because it wanted to obtain the dragon origin energy of the 1,000 dragon divine domain. This energy would allow it to reach a higher level and allow it to gain the upper hand against the good corpse and self corpse. This was also the reason why the evil winged dragon corpse wanted the 1,000 dragon seal so badly. This seal can't trap me. Yang Hongwu smiled gently. When the seal was over, he easily walked out of the ceiling array formation. It was as if the ceiling array formation did not exist at all. Although the ceiling formation was extremely powerful, it still used the power of the 1,000 dragon divine domain. Luo Yinyang could be said to be the master of the 1,000 dragon divine domain. He controlled a part of the origin of the 1,000 dragon divine domain. Coupled with his understanding and attainments in formations, the seal laid down by the evil winged dragon corpse was completely ineffective against him. The expression of the winged dragon's corpse changed drastically when he saw this scene. Even the seal had no effect, and this caused him to be slightly stunned. How can this be? Damn it, that bastard is not a good corpse or a self-corpse. Could it be his original body? No, it can't be. If it's his original body, I will be controlled. Now, I can't feel the existence of his original body. That guy is not his original body. The evil corpse was a little flustered. However, it soon understood that Yang Hongwu was definitely not his original body. Chapter 2363. But even so, he had been tricked, which made him very angry. He looked at Yang Hongwu and Brother Meng in front of him. Both of them were existences that made him angry. Brother Meng and this Tao Master in front of him seemed to have similar auras to Winged Dragon's true body. This aura made him very annoyed. Back then, Winged Dragon did not break through to the level of 3-corpse saint in the primitive universe or in the Yanhuang Great World. Instead, he entered this void and made a breakthrough, severed his 3 corpses, and reached his current level. Therefore, as the evil corpse of Winged Dragon, he did not know that Yang Hongwu and Brother Meng came from the same place. For the evil corpse of Winged Dragon, he especially hated those whose auras were similar to Winged Dragon's true body. Therefore, the evil corpse of Winged Dragon hated Yang Hongwu and Brother Meng very much and wanted to kill them. No matter what, you all have to die. Emperor of 1,000 dragons, you go and kill this Tao Master Kid. I'll deal with that universe overlord guy. At this time, the evil corpse of Winged Dragon knew that he was restricted by the laws and could not kill them. Yang Hongwu. Therefore, he could only let the Emperor of 1,000 dragons, who had no restrictions, deal with him while he went to deal with that half-dead guy. At this moment, the Emperor of 1,000 dragons felt very happy and very sad at the same time. He was just a tool that could be used. This kind of feeling was not good at all. How could he not be sad? As the Emperor of 1,000 dragons who was once high and mighty and was only one step away from becoming a universe overlord, how could he endure such humiliation? However, he had no room to resist at all now. He could not refuse the order of the giant dragon in front of him. If he refused, he was afraid that he would lose his life. Originally, he thought that he was going to die because too much of his power had been extracted. But at this time, the giant dragon in front of him still needed him to deal with this Tao Master youth in front of him. Therefore, at this moment, he realized that his power had returned and seemed to have become even stronger. He knew very well that this was because the dragon had returned his power to him. It had given him even more power, making him even more powerful. Moreover, he could once again control the formation. At this moment, if he were to face that universe overlord, he felt that he could easily kill him. Yes, sir. Leave this brat to me. Murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He had no other choice. Even if he knew that he could kill the kid in front of him, he would not be able to live. Perhaps this giant dragon would even take back his power. It was the same as going there. Perhaps he could cooperate with that brat and fake a fight. In that case, he could think of a way and find an opportunity. However, if he cooperated with that brat, it didn't seem like a good idea. He could be said to be his enemy. He was the master of the 1,000 Dragon Divine region, and now he was half a master of the 1,000 Dragon Divine region. To him, if he could truly fulfill the wish of the master of 1,000 Dragon Divine region, then his power would skyrocket. He wouldn't just be an ordinary universe overlord. He would be stronger than other universe overlords, and he could even become an invincible overlord. He would become an invincible overlord. However, if he lost the 1,000 Dragon Divine region, it would be difficult for him to become an invincible overlord, let alone become an invincible overlord. For the sake of becoming the master of the 1,000 Dragon Divine region, he had sacrificed too much. Putting aside the benefits that the 1,000 Dragon Divine region had brought him, the 1,000 Dragon Divine region had, in fact, become his obsession. Once he lost the 1,000 Dragon Divine domain, he would have an obsession in his heart. It would be extremely difficult for him to advance any further. Of course, if he could really give up on everything, then his strength would improve even more, and he would be able to improve even more. It wasn't difficult to achieve the invincible ruler realm, but it wasn't easy to achieve it. However, he didn't have much time to think now. If he didn't make a move, then he would definitely die. He had to make a move against Yang Hongwu. Unless Yang Hongwu could kill this giant dragon, his power would most likely be taken back. Boy, your time of death has come. Now, you can no longer control my array, so you are far from being my match. The Emperor of 1,000 Dragons stared at Yang Hongwu, and the giant dragon appeared again. This was the original body of the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons, but compared to the evil winged dragon corpse, the difference was too great. The original body of the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons was a giant golden dragon, and although the evil winged dragon corpse was also golden, there was a special black color in the golden color. However, this black color was insignificant. In terms of majesty, his body was also much larger. Compared to Yang Hongwu's dragon soul, it was on a completely different level. Compared to these two giant dragons, Yang Hongwu's dragon soul was like a small loach, completely unremarkable. However, this small loach was extremely powerful. After the appearance of the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons' golden dragon, Yang Hongwu didn't hesitate at all. The golden dragon soul appeared once again and rushed up, directly biting the body of the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons, crazily devouring him. The origin of the dragon power. This time, the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons was once again stunned. Is this guy crazy? The Emperor of 1,000 Dragons wanted to shake off Yang Hongwu, but he found that he couldn't do it no matter what. He couldn't control himself again, and the array was no longer under his control. Array, damn it, what's going on? My lord, I can't control myself, and the array is also out of control. The Emperor of 1,000 Dragons panicked again. If this continued, his little life would be over. He had no choice but to ask for help from the evil winged dragon corpse. Trash, you can't even control a mere array. What's the use of having you? Just as he was about to make a move, he heard the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons cry for help. This made the evil winged dragon corpse extremely angry. So useless. Only now did he give him strength. In fact, it had even allowed him to become even more powerful. Yet his spirit formation had been instantly seized by someone else. How could he not be furious? Even a random trash would be much stronger than him, right? However, this time, the evil winged dragon corpse had miscalculated, completely miscalculated. He wanted to take back the control of the array, but at this moment he couldn't do it. He couldn't control the array anymore. The array of the 1,000 Dragons Imperial City was completely under control. The entire array was controlled by Yang Hongwu, and the laws of the entire world seemed to be under his control as well. It was starting to suppress his strength. Damn it, I can't control the array either. The 1,000 Dragons Divine Domain has recognized you as its master. This is impossible. How could you have gained the recognition of the 1,000 Dragons' divine domain in such a short period of time? This is impossible. It must be that bastard secretly helping you. Winged dragon, you bastard, get the hell out here, I know you're here. The evil winged dragon corpse roared. Chapter 2364. There's no need to shout. Winged Dragon isn't here. I don't know if it was Winged Dragon himself who recognized me as his master, but I'm sure he's severely injured. However, he's already left the domain of the gods and entered the void. It said that his enemies are very powerful, but I'm not too sure about that. Now, you're not much of a threat to me. If you submit to me, perhaps I'll consider accepting your submission for his sake, Yang Hongwu said to the evil corpse of Winged Dragon. In fact, Yang Hongwu coveted this guy's dragon power very much. If he could devour its dragon power, his dragon soul would be greatly improved. Once he devoured it, even if his dragon soul couldn't reach the level of a universe overlord, it wouldn't be far from it. However, Yang Hongwu knew very well that this was actually a very difficult task. It wasn't easy to reach the level of a universe overlord, even if it was just a dragon soul. Submit to you? Hearing this, the evil corpse of Winged Dragon couldn't help but stare at Yang Hongwu angrily. What a joke. I'm an invincible overlord. How can I submit to you, a mere Dao master? Besides, do you really think that you can do whatever you want just because you have that bastard power and help? Do you really think you can deal with me just because you control the formation? You're too naive. The power of an invincible overlord is beyond your imagination. Even if you control the 1,000 Dragon domain and become its master, you're still no match for me. Although I can't kill you because of the restrictions of the laws, I can still seal you. The evil corpse of Winged Dragon was very angry. If this piece of trash wasn't so useless, he wouldn't have been able to deal with this guy even if he gave him enough power. You can try, Yang Hongwu said with a smile. Sealing him? What a joke. Sealing him now was simply a fool's dream. Now, Yang Hongwu was sure that this evil corpse of Winged Dragon was definitely not the one who had created the space-time transmission formation. He was not the one who could lock the position of the divine talisman of time. His strength was not enough. In order to create such a matrix and lock the space-time node of the divine talisman of time, one had to at least reach the level of a void overlord. However, the strength of the evil corpse of Yinglong was far from enough. Perhaps it was very strong at its peak, but it was definitely not a void overlord. Even Yinglong himself might not have reached that level. If he was really that powerful, he wouldn't care about a mere 1,000 Dragon seal or the 1,000 Dragons divine domain. Perhaps the entire God realm might be able to tempt him, but a mere God realm would not be able to attract him to this extent. Since this evil corpse of Winged Dragon was not the one who had created the space-time transmission formation and locked the space-time node of the divine talisman of time, then he couldn't stop Yi Fuqian from using the space-time transmission formation. Therefore, he couldn't stop Yi Fuqian from leaving this place. Although Yang Hongwu had yet to fully comprehend the array formation, he was able to figure out some ways to teleport through the array formation. With the help of these things, Yang Hongwu's understanding of the space Tao had reached a higher level. It should be known that Yang Hongwu already had the Void Boat. Although the Void Boat wasn't a complete void treasure, it could still evolve. Yang Hongwu's comprehension of the space Tao was extremely profound, and his attainments in array formation weren't bad either. Now, he had integrated the mysterious nomological laws of the formation breaking pill and the restriction breaking pill into array formation Tao. Because of this, his understanding of the formation Tao had reached a higher level. Now, even if he encountered some special matrices, he didn't need to use the formation breaking pill to break them. Of course, refining the formation breaking pill and the restriction breaking pill was still very useful. It could save a lot of time and energy. After all, breaking matrices and restrictions was also a matter of energy. This was a matter that consumed a lot of energy. If he used pills, it would save a lot of energy. It was the same for setting up matrices. Yang Hongwu had integrated the restriction breaking pill and the formation breaking pill's special secret technique into setting up matrices and array disks. This was also the reason why Yang Hongwu could set up powerful matrices silently. Seal. As the evil corpse of winged dragon shouted, a sealing power was spat out from its mouth. It was using the dragon breath to seal. This sealing technique was very mysterious. It was a sealing technique unique to the winged dragon clan. It would consume the origin dragon breath to seal. Therefore, if there weren't special circumstances, they would generally not use such a secret technique to seal others. After all, it was a very disadvantageous thing to do. The origin dragon breath was no ordinary thing. To dragons, the origin dragon breath and the origin dragon power were both more important. The reason for that was because the recovery of the origin dragon breath was much more difficult than the recovery of the origin dragon power. Therefore, to dragons, unless there was no other choice, they would not use the origin dragon breath. Seals are useless against me. Yang Hongwu laughed. He didn't care about the seal at all. Seeing that the seal was about to reach Yang Hongwu's body, the little golden dragon that he had transformed into opened its mouth and directly devoured the seal. This scene caused the evil corpse of winged dragon to be in utter disbelief. How is this possible? That's the origin dragon breath seal that I cast with the secret technique of dragons. How could it be devoured? He had seen members of the dragon tribe that possessed the power of devouring, but he had never seen a member of the dragon tribe that could devour the origin dragon breath. Moreover, he could tell that the young man in front of him was not a true member of the dragon tribe. Although the dragon tribe bloodline in his body was very powerful and pure, and his bloodline was of a very high grade, he was not a member of the dragon tribe. Could this guy be from the legendary Devouring Dragon clan? Only those from the Devouring Dragon clan could suppress dragons. However, according to the legends, there were very few people from the Devouring Dragon clan. Because of their terrifying suppression towards dragons, the dragons had paid a huge price to launch a frenzied attack on the Devouring Dragon clan. At that time, many of the dragons had used suicidal attacks to perish together with the Devouring Dragon clan. This was also the reason for the extinction of the Devouring Dragon clan. Due to the fall of many dragons in that battle, the dragons had no choice but to hide in the Void Dragon domain. He had once wanted to enter the Void Dragon domain, but because the Void Dragon domain was sealed, he couldn't enter. This was also the reason why he wanted to obtain the 1,000 Dragons Divine Domain and the 1,000 Dragons Seal. It was said that the 1,000 Dragons Divine Domain was an entrance to the Void Dragon Domain, and the 1,000 Dragon Seal was a key to enter. You're from the Devouring Dragon clan? The evil corpse of Winged Dragon looked at Yang Hongwu and asked, "You didn't get that bastard approval, but devoured him." Chapter 2365. Devouring Dragon Clan? No, that's not it. However, even if I'm not from the Devouring Dragon Clan, I still have an unparalleled suppressive power against dragons. All dragons will be suppressed by my bloodline. Yang Hongwu laughed heartily. You're just an evil corpse of Ing Dragon. Of course, you'll be suppressed. I've said that you have no choice today. Either you surrender or you die. Surrender? Impossible. Even if I die, you won't be able to kill me. The evil corpse of Ing Dragon realized that he couldn't deal with this brat. This time, he had miscalculated. Since he couldn't deal with this brat, he might as well give up some things and leave this place. He would wait for his strength to increase before coming back for revenge. Moreover, he could tell that this brat was too arrogant and his cultivation base wasn't high. Such a person wouldn't live for long. Geniuses would always be geniuses. Before they grew up, they wouldn't be considered experts. However, being a genius didn't mean that they were experts. Although he couldn't fight this brat due to his bloodline, others could. As long as there was no suppression, this brat would definitely die. Thinking of this, the evil corpse of Winged Dragon took a deep breath. Although it was extremely sullen, it had no other choice. It couldn't kill this brat in front of it. Therefore, it could only choose to retreat and give up on the 1,000 Dragon Divine Domain. There wasn't only one way to enter the Void Dragon realm. Although he had searched for a long time, he still couldn't find the most reliable way. The most reliable way was to enter the 1,000 Dragon Divine Domain. However, this wasn't the only entrance. There was only one way. It was just that the other ways were relatively more difficult. Perhaps his true body, the real Ing Dragon, was faking his death and injury. In fact, he had already entered the Void Dragon realm. For dragons, the Void Dragon realm was their true home. It was the place that they dreamed of. Once they entered, they would be able to obtain the power of the Dragon realm. Their dragon body would be cleansed, and they would be greatly strengthened. The great Tao of the universe would be tempered. This way, their cultivation base would improve by leaps and bounds. It was rumored that after entering the Void Dragon realm and being cleansed by the Void Dragon pool, one's physical body could directly reach the level of a Void Overlord. This was the dream of all the Dragon Tribe. Even many experts who were not from the Dragon Tribe wanted to enter the Void Dragon realm and refine their physical bodies in the Void Dragon pool. However, other than dragons, no one had ever heard of any foreign experts successfully refining the Void Dragon pool. Even if a true Void Overlord entered the Void Dragon pool, his body would crumble unless he was a dragon. Even if he was a real dragon, his body would crumble and his soul would disperse in the Void Dragon pool. There were very few people who could successfully refine the Void Dragon pool. Only true geniuses and people with great perseverance could succeed in refining the Void Dragon pool. However, the temptation was too great. If one could refine the Void Dragon pool successfully, his physical body would directly reach the level of a Void Overlord. Although it would not be as good as his cultivation base, his strength would still be terrifying. The physical body of a Void Overlord was absolutely invincible among those below the Void Overlord level. As long as he did not meet a Void Overlord expert, no one below the Void Overlord level would be able to harm him. Because of this, although it was very dangerous to enter the Void Dragon pool to refine the Void Dragon pool, it could not stop those experts who had reached their limits or could no longer improve from entering. In fact, the evil corpse of Winged Dragon was the same. After all, he was just an evil corpse. Without the help of his true body, it would be very difficult for him to improve as an evil corpse. After all, he was incomplete. I have to admit that you have a great restriction on me. I don't know why that bastard recognized you as his master. This is a disgrace, a great disgrace. A dignified, invincible overlord actually recognized a puny, down master as his master. If that bastard did not do such a shameful thing, how could I not kill you? After saying that, the evil corpse of Winged Dragon snorted coldly. A majestic force erupted and surged towards Yang Hongwu like a torrential flood. Yang Hongwu did not dare to be careless when he saw this. After all, this force was too terrifying. It could be seen that the evil corpse of Winged Dragon had used all his strength. Yang Hongwu did not want to fail miserably. Even if he knew that the evil corpse of Winged Dragon could not kill him, it could still injure him. Moreover, if the evil corpse of Winged Dragon broke through the limit, it could still do the same. If one broke through the limit, there would be no restrictions of the Dharma. This was a very terrifying thing. Although he knew that the evil corpse of Winged Dragon was still far from reaching that level. It's useless. No matter how strong your attack is, it's useless. If it's someone else, he might be a threat to me. However, your strength has no effect on me. If you give your strength to the Emperor of Thousand Dragons and borrow his hand to deal with me, you might still have a chance of winning. However, you can't do it by yourself. Yang Hongwu said loudly. He knew that the evil corpse of Winged Dragon would not give his strength to the Emperor of Thousand Dragons. If he did not completely cut off his strength and give it to the Emperor of Thousand Dragons, he would not be able to deal with Yang Hongwu. The Emperor of Thousand Dragons was not a kind person. If he gave all his strength to the Emperor of Thousand Dragons, the evil corpse of Winged Dragon would probably regret it. Because of this, Yang Hongwu dared to provoke the evil corpse of Winged Dragon. Because it was impossible. Brat, I will definitely settle the score with you in the future. After that attack, the evil corpse of Winged Dragon escaped. He did not want the Thousand Dragons seal or the Thousand Dragons Imperial City anymore. Yang Hongwu had never expected this to happen. Although the evil corpse of Winged Dragon was not at his peak, he was still an invincible overlord. He did not expect that he would choose to retreat and leave when facing Yang Hongwu, who was only a Dao master. Yang Hongwu was not the only one who was dumbfounded. Even Brother Ming and the Emperor of Thousand Dragons had not expected this. The battle between the two came to a stop. He left, just like that. The Emperor of Thousand Dragons was dumbfounded. This meant that he was no longer in a life-threatening situation. However, it was impossible for him to deal with Yang Hongwu and Brother Ming. Since both of them had left, he could only escape. Otherwise, he would also die. You guys have won. The Emperor of Thousand Dragons sighed. I don't know where you came from, but you've won. The Thousand Dragons' divine domain belongs to you now. After saying that, the Emperor of Thousand Dragons fled into the distance. There is no difference between fleeing without a fight and fleeing without a fight. Little friend, I did not expect that you would have such strength. I'm really surprised. Now that you're in charge of the Thousand Dragons' divine domain, I'm very pleased. Your future achievements will definitely be extraordinary. It's just that I won't be able to see it. If you can return to your hometown one day, I hope that you can take care of the descendants of my golden clan. Chapter 2366. Senior, why do you have to do this? You're powerful. You're only in a temporary predicament. It's not impossible for you to survive. Looking at Brother Ming, he was a powerful emperor. Although Yang Hongwu didn't like the Mongolian back then, he had to admit that the Mongolian Empire was indeed the most powerful in the history he knew. The empire's territory was vast, surpassing all the previous dynasties. The name of Genghis Khan was famous. I'm already at the end of my rope. Unless I can break the limit and break through the bloodline shackles, there's no chance for me to survive. Brother Ming shook his head. I admire the Golden Clan very much. After all, Genghis Khan had conquered a vast empire. It was even more vast than Qin Shi Huang's empire. Yang Hongwu sighed. Brother Ming couldn't help but be startled when he heard that. He continued, Little brother, don't talk nonsense. The first emperor isn't someone we can compare to. The first emperor's empire is incomparably vast. His empire isn't as simple as it seems. Yang Hongwu was stunned when he heard this. However, after thinking about it, he seemed to have underestimated it. He was only using the original history as a reference. In fact, the history he saw back then was only for ordinary people. Even Feng Xiaoru was so powerful back then. So how could Qin Shi Huang be so simple? The so-called history was only the history of ordinary people. In the history of ordinary people, Qin Shi Huang was the emperor of the ages, let alone the history that couldn't be seen. This wasn't the history of ordinary people, but the history of cultivators. Haha, thank you for your reminder, Senior. I was too naive. However, having said that, I have to thank Senior. Senior and I are not related, but you paid a great price to help me. I'm very grateful. Yang Hongwu looked at Brother Ming. In fact, this was Yang Hongwu's gratitude from the bottom of his heart. This was a kind of selfless attitude. Yang Hongwu asked himself, if he reached that point, he would absolutely not be able to do it. It was impossible for him to sacrifice his own life for others. Even if he knew that he had no chance of survival, he would not do so, unless it was someone very important to him. It was absolutely impossible for him to sacrifice his own life for someone who was not related to him. Of course, perhaps his realm wasn't high enough to be selfless. What do you mean by not related to you? You and I came from the same place. That's fate. Since we're from the same place, we're family and friends. Brother Ming said, Moreover, I'm a dying man. I can't go back. If you can go back, I hope you can bring my broken body back. Yang Hongwu sighed when he heard this. In fact, Yinglong was also from the same place. They both came from the same void and the same great cosmos. Yang Hongwu wanted to go back as well, but it was easier said than done to get back to that side of the void. Previously, Lu Yu's master, Supreme Sovereign Ancient Desolation, had said that it was because of him that Yang Hongwu and Lu Yu were able to come to this side of the void. However, Yang Hongwu knew that this was only a coincidence. Given his strength, he was not even a void overlord. How could he cross the void and bring him here? It was unrealistic. He couldn't do it. If I can go back, I'll definitely bring you back. Yang Hongwu nodded. It's best if you can go back. If you can't, there's no need to force it. Brother Meng sighed. Then, a divine light flashed in his eyes. I don't have much use for the last of my power. I hope it could be of some help to you. As he said that, the origin source power of Brother Mongo's huge golden wolf merged into Yang Hongwu's body. It made Yang Hongwu's dragon soul stronger and more stable. Yang Hongwu's dragon soul hadn't reached the level of a universe overlord, but it wasn't far away. If he could get the dragon origin of the evil corpse of Winged Dragon, his dragon soul might have reached the level of a universe overlord. After refining Brother Meng's origin of the great path of the universe, Yang Hongwu's power was greatly improved. His cultivation had reached the 3rd level Dao Master. Although he was still a long way from becoming a great Dao supremacy, his progress was already very fast. Yang Hongwu waved his hand and put Brother Meng's body into the space. Since he had obtained his power, he had to fulfill his wish. If he could go back, he would take him back. Is it over? Zi Xintong asked. I thought there would be an earth-shattering battle. I didn't expect it to be like this. That's Brother Meng, the Mongol emperor? Lu Yu said, I didn't expect so many people to come to this side of the void. Yinglong, Fong Xiaoru, Brother Meng, and perhaps others have also come to this side of the void. What's the connection between this side of the void and our world? Didn't Master say that it was because of him that we were able to enter here? Li was a little confused. She felt that what her master Farukura Daizuan said was not entirely true. Her master might be powerful, but he shouldn't be that powerful. It should be noted that Brother Meng and Winged Dragon were extremely powerful. They were all invincible overlords. Even Fong Xiaoru was far from simple. Maybe he's hiding something, Yang Hongwu said. In fact, Farukura Daizuan wasn't that simple. She thought that everything would become clearer and clearer. In fact, as her strength increased, she saw more and more things, and everything became more and more blurry. Why did Master do that? Lu Yu asked. I don't know about that. All we can do is make ourselves stronger and stronger. Yang Hongwu said. Now that I have the 1,000 Dragon Seal and the 1,000 Dragons Imperial City is under my control, I'm going to completely refine the 1,000 Dragons Divine Domain. Aren't you in too much of a hurry? Lu Yu said at this time. There's not much time. I don't want to be in such a hurry, but there's no other way. Yang Hongwu smiled bitterly. For a long time, what he lacked was time. Time waits for no man. Thinking of the word time, a light flashed in Yang Hongwu's mind. Perhaps he could use the space-time travel array to return to the past to cultivate. If he could do that, wouldn't he have a lot more time and no longer have to worry about the lack of time to cultivate? Chapter 2367. Let's go to 1,000 Dragons Imperial City. Yang Hongwu said, there should be a place to cultivate in 1,000 Dragons Imperial City. It's very safe there. He had to admit that the formation of the 1,000 Dragons Imperial City was very powerful. It could be said that once he gained complete control of the 1,000 Dragons Imperial City and the 1,000 Dragons Divine Domain, his strength would increase tremendously. At that time, there wouldn't be many people in the Divine Domain who could contend against him. After a short while, Yang Hongwu arrived at a magnificent city through the transportation array. This city was the 1,000 Dragons Imperial City. After entering the city, Yang Hongwu took control of the array of the entire city with just a thought. The array has been changed. There's an enemy invading. At this moment, several old ancestors in 1,000 Dragons Imperial City sensed that the aura of the array had changed greatly. An unfamiliar force appeared, and their expressions changed drastically. The array of the Imperial City was controlled by an outsider. This meant that something big had happened. As the city lord, something must have happened to the emperor of 1,000 dragons. Although his life spirit Jade hadn't shattered yet, they were certain that something had happened. The array of 1,000 Dragons Imperial City was the foundation of 1,000 Dragons Emperor. It couldn't be controlled by an outsider unless he was forced to do so. Under normal circumstances, 1,000 Dragons Emperor wouldn't give up 1,000 Dragons Imperial City even if he had to die together with his enemy. However, the imperial city had been taken away by someone. There was no doubt about the result. At this moment, several old ancestors appeared in the conference hall of the imperial city. This was the only time that all the old ancestors had gathered in an instant. Even those old ancestors who had been in seclusion all year round had appeared. All 8 old ancestors were present. These 8 old ancestors were extremely powerful, and they had all reached the level of half-step universe overlords. Moreover, it was unknown how long they had been half-step universe overlords. A few of them had very aged appearances. However, there were also a few people who were very young. They resembled youths. However, the aura they exuded when they sat there was very shocking. Everyone, this is a serious matter. I'm afraid something big has happened to the city lord. A white-bearded old man in a purple robe said. The old man looked thin and weak, as if a gust of wind could blow him away. However, his status was the highest, so he should be the strongest as well. After all, in this world where strength was everything, being strong was the most fundamental. Without strength, it was impossible to gain the respect of others. If they were not strong enough, how could they have the right to speak? Thus, no one dared to refute the words of this old man. From this, it could be seen that his strength should be the strongest. After Yang Hongwu took control of the Thousand Dragons Imperial City's array formation, he had already discovered the existence of these experts. This was probably the strongest force in the Thousand Dragons Imperial City. These old men were extremely strong. If they joined forces, they might be able to contend against a universe overlord. However, they were destined to fail. If they didn't surrender, they would all die. Yang Hongwu was no longer a soft-hearted person. When it was time to kill, he had to be decisive. Although his life spirit Jade is not broken, the power of the Thousand Dragons Imperial City is now controlled by someone else. It can be seen that something has happened to him. Another person was an old woman. Her eyes flashed with murderous intent. The enemy is very strong. If he can defeat the city lord, we might not be his match, said a young-looking old man. Do we fight, or flee, or submit? Fight? The enemy is too strong. I'm afraid we are no match for him. Besides, the enemy is in the dark while we are in the open. We have no idea how strong the enemy is. Now that he has taken control of the Thousand Dragons Imperial City's array formation, we will be trapped once he attacks, said the young old man. You want to flee, or submit to him? The purple-robed old man looked at him coldly. The purple-robed old man's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Flee? Where can we flee to? Purple Dragon old man, tell me, how can we flee? Now that the Thousand Dragons Imperial City is sealed, how can we flee? Said the young old man. Submission? That depends on whether the other party is willing or not. Then what do you think we should do? Asked the purple-robed old man. That's right. Little Yin, what do you think we should do? Either we fight to the death, or we submit right now. If we think too much, we won't have a good ending. Also, we have to make a decision quickly. If I'm not wrong, he should have already entered and knows of our existence. The young old ancestor said. Fight to the death, shouted the old woman. She slammed her walking stick on the ground. Let's fight to the death. That's not suitable. I'm still young. I don't want to die. That's right. I don't want to die either. At this time, several younger patriarchs stood up. Only 2 of them, the purple-robed old man and the old woman, wanted to fight to the death. You all very well. Leave. Don't let me see you again, said the purple-robed old man. It's not good to go out like this. We have to show our allegiance, said the young old man. Show our allegiance? Hearing that, the purple-robed old man's face darkened. He looked at them and said, You want to use my head as a show of allegiance? You got guts. The old woman's face darkened even more. She said coldly, I think you're tired of living. How dare you have ideas about us? You want to use my head as a show of allegiance. You don't seem to be qualified. The purple-robed old man snorted coldly. He slammed his walking stick on the ground, and the entire assembly hall changed. The walls cracked open, and puppets appeared from the cracked walls. These puppets' auras were terrifying to the extreme. Undying puppets. These are the undying puppets of the 1,000 Dragons Imperial City. How is this possible? Weren't all of the puppets destroyed in the battle back then? Cried one of the old men. These undying puppets were no joke. As long as the person controlling them didn't die, these puppets were truly undying and indestructible. They couldn't be killed or destroyed. Only when a master of the undying puppets was killed would the puppets be truly destroyed. If that person hadn't been killed in the battle back then, how could the 1,000 Dragons Imperial City exist today? That's right. These are the undying puppets. The person that was killed back then was actually one of my uncles. There are only 6 undying puppets here. Although they're far from being comparable to my uncles, they're more than enough to deal with you all, said the purple-robed old man. At that moment, the killing intent in his eyes was completely exposed. The moment you all made your choice, you were destined to die. Like that intruder, you all will die here. Chapter 2368. You want to stall for time? It's useless. No matter what, you have to die. Even if that person has come in, you will die here. I will never let you go. At this moment, Patriarch Purple Dragon had already made up his mind to kill. There was no way he would stop his attack. Although these undead puppets had not reached the level of being truly immortal, they were still extremely powerful and terrifying. Back then, he paid a huge price and took a huge risk to enter the void just to make these undying puppets. These undying puppets were the source of Purple Dragon Patriarch's confidence. Originally, he wanted to use these undying puppets to enter a secret region and find a way to make a breakthrough. Although he was powerful and had been a half-step universe overlord for a long time, he had never found a chance to make a breakthrough. This had always been on Purple Dragon Patriarch's mind. He did not have much time left. However, he did not expect that this time someone would seize 1,000 Dragons Imperial City and defeat 1,000 Dragons Emperor. This way, all his calculations had failed. It should be known that the most crucial part of entering the secret realm was the help of the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons. He needed the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons' help to open the secret realm. Now that the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons no longer had the 1,000 Dragons Imperial City, he naturally did not have enough strength to open the secret realm. Moreover, his life and death were still unknown. Therefore, the Violet Dragon Patriarch made his decision after learning about 1,000 Dragons Imperial City. He wanted to teach that person a lesson. Of course, if that person was willing to help him, he could also cooperate with him. However, this possibility was very small. An unfamiliar person would not be willing to pay such a huge price for someone else. To Purple Dragon Patriarch, if he could defeat that person and seize control of 1,000 Dragons Imperial City, he still had a chance. If not, then he would die together with that person. Purple Dragon Patriarch knew that he had reached the end of his life, so he could take a risk and trigger the universe Great Path Thunder Trial. There was still a slim chance of survival. If that person did not cooperate, he would drag him into the universe Great Path Thunder Trial and die together. Thinking of this, Purple Dragon Patriarch's eyes flashed coldly. He was actually very afraid of the universe Great Path Thunder Trial, which was why he had never dared to try and become a universe overlord. He had seen too many people who had tried to become universe overlords, but they had all failed. They had been obliterated by the terrifying Great Path Thunder Trial, and they did not even have the chance to be reincarnated. In fact, he had already prepared a reincarnation treasure. If he failed to pass the tribulation, he would use the reincarnation treasure to reincarnate and restart his cultivation. However, in that case, his talent might not be as strong as it was now, and he might not be able to recover his current cultivation. It was even possible that he would lose his memories and his ID. That was also very likely. It was simply too difficult for him to reincarnate and return to his peak after his cultivation had reached such a level. Kill them all. Patriarch Purple Dragon shouted, and all of the undying golems charged towards the 6 cultivators. The young old ancestor and the others naturally wouldn't sit and wait for death. They didn't want to die. Therefore, they were also fighting back against these undying puppets. With their strength, They actually had the upper hand in the battle against the undying golems. After all, their strength was there for all to see. However, the advantage of these undying golems was that they were immortal. They did not know pain and could not be injured. Unless they were completely destroyed, they were simply unkillable. This was why they were a huge problem. However, at this time, the young old ancestor was actually not in a hurry. What they needed was time. They just needed to stall for time until that expert arrived. In that case, that expert could easily deal with the Thousand Dragons Emperor. In that case, it shouldn't be too difficult for him to deal with Ancestor Purple Dragon. Therefore, they knew that as long as they could stall for enough time, all of this would not be a problem. Purple Dragon Patriarch, it's absolutely impossible for you to kill us in a short period of time. I admit that these undying golems are indeed very powerful. We can't kill them, nor can we kill you. However, we only need to stall them until the great being arrives. It will be the time of your death. Interesting, this is really interesting. Yang Hongwu appeared with Lu Yu and Zi Xintong at this time. He was very surprised to see this scene. Internal strife. Internal strife had occurred in the Thousand Dragons Imperial City. However, this was also a very common thing. Some people wanted to surrender, and some people wanted to fight to the death. This was very normal. At this moment, Yang Hongwu was most curious about these puppets. He had to admit that these puppets were very shocking. As long as the puppet's master was alive, these puppets seemed to be able to be resurrected. Yang Hongwu narrowed his eyes. These puppets could be studied. At a critical moment, if he had such powerful puppets, they might be the key to victory. Of course, the puppet he needed was not something a mere half-step universe overlord could do. A puppet of a half-step universe overlord might be sufficient in the God domain, but in the void, it would not work at all. In the vast void space, there were countless great beings, and there were countless universe overlords. Moreover, his enemies were each more powerful than the last. There were probably many invincible overlords and void overlords. There might even be enemies beyond the void level. These ordinary half-step universe overlord puppets could not withstand a single blow in front of these powerful beings. The so-called unkillable depended on the situation. In the face of absolute power, there was nothing that could not be destroyed. He's here. That great being is here. Purple Dragon Ancestor, it's time for you to die. At this time, the young ancestor laughed. Sir, please come out. We are willing to surrender. However, Purple Dragon Ancestor and this damned old woman want to avenge the Thousand Dragons Emperor. They are unwilling to hand over the Thousand Dragons Imperial City and want to be enemies with you. We wanted to capture these two old things and present them to you as a gift. However, these two old things have too many tricks up their sleeves. We are incompetent and can't kill them. Bastard, come out, Purple Dragon Ancestor said. You want to snatch my Thousand Dragons Imperial City and ruin my opportunity? Impossible. Yang Hongwu looked indifferent as he appeared in front of everyone. Chapter 2369. A great being behind you. Yang Hongwu laughed. He didn't have a great being behind him. If he did, it would be great. However, Yang Hongwu didn't need any other great beings to deal with Purple Dragon Patriarch. He could deal with Thousand Dragons Emperor and the evil corpse of Winged Dragon by himself. Yang Hongwu also wanted to have a great being behind him, but he had no other choice. In Yang Hongwu's eyes, a true backer would have to be at least at the level of a void overlord. For the current Yang Hongwu, invincible overlords were far from enough to be his backers. His enemies were too strong. Now, he could handle universe overlords by himself. He could even contend with invincible overlords. However, if he had to face a void overlord, he really had no chance of contending with them. Void overlords were way too scary. In fact, invincible overlords were already pretty scary. It was just that in the God domain, invincible overlords couldn't unleash their full strength. If Yang Hongwu were to meet an invincible overlord in the void, he would still have to flee. However, this Purple Dragon Patriarch was merely a half-step universe overlord, and he only had a few puppets. How dare he be so arrogant? Did he think that he wasn't strong enough and wanted his backer to deal with him? What a joke. So you're the strongest patriarch in the Thousand Dragons Imperial City, the one called Patriarch Violet Dragon or something? Yang Hongwu asked, looking at him intently. Junior, you're not qualified to talk to me. Ask your elder to come out. Otherwise, don't blame me for bullying you. Patriarch Purple Dragon was still very afraid of him. The young man in front of him was only a down master, but the person behind him made Patriarch Purple Dragon very afraid. If Patriarch Purple Dragon directly attacked the young man in front of him at this time, it would be very troublesome if the person behind him was displeased. After all, until now, he still didn't know the true strength of that expert. However, one thing was for sure. That great being was definitely very strong. Even if he had the help of these undead puppets, he might not be able to contend with him. No need, Yang Hongwu said. Purple Dragon Patriarch, right? You're not bullying me. If you can deal with me, then Thousand Dragons Imperial City will belong to you. However, I'm afraid you're not qualified. As an ancestor, you don't even have a discerning eye. How sad. I don't know if you've lived for so long in vain. Bastard, Junior, do you really think I don't have temper? Today, I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of your elder. After saying that, Purple Dragon Patriarch raised his withered right hand. A dragon claw. He attacked just like that. However, Yang Hongwu didn't care at all. He didn't care about this attack at all. At this moment, Yang Hongwu raised his hand and flicked gently. A ray of light shot out and landed on the purple dragon claw. In an instant, the dragon claw disappeared without a trace. This kind of attack was extremely shocking. Although Purple Dragon Patriarch didn't use all his strength, it was definitely not something an ordinary Dao Master could withstand. Even a great Dao Master would find it extremely difficult to withstand his attack as long as he hadn't reached the level of a half-step universe overlord. Even if he could withstand it, he would have to pay a great price. However, this young man did it so easily. It was as if he didn't use any strength at all. This ability was really terrifying. This young man looked very young, but he was so powerful. No wonder he was so contemptuous when he heard that Purple Dragon Patriarch had to ask the person behind him to come out before he was qualified to talk to Purple Dragon Patriarch. He thought the young man in front of him was too conceited and arrogant. It turned out that he had such powerful strength. Especially at this moment, looking at Yin Quan and the others' mocking expressions, Purple Dragon Patriarch felt like finding a hole to hide in. However, he knew that he had to make a choice. Surrender or resist. He had to fight to the death. This choice was very difficult. After all, once he made the wrong choice, it meant that he would definitely die. He took a deep breath and looked at the young man in front of him. He seemed to be only a Dao Master, but he was extremely powerful. If he surrendered, it meant that he had to give up everything and become this young man's servant. His status would be reduced from a high and mighty ancestor to a servant. This was something he couldn't accept. He had been high and mighty for so many years. Now, he had to become a servant and let others control his life and death. This was something he couldn't accept. Young man, I don't care who you are, Purple Dragon Patriarch said. This is Thousand Dragon Imperial City, my territory. You'd better leave now, or I won't be polite. Won't be polite? Yang Hongwu smiled faintly and said, let me see how you're going to be rude. Now, Thousand Dragon Imperial City isn't yours but mine. I'm a master of Thousand Dragon Imperial City. With that, Yang Hongwu mobilized the power of the entire Thousand Dragon Imperial City with a thought. An overbearing phantom appeared in the void. It was the device spirit of Thousand Dragon Imperial City. The entire Thousand Dragon Imperial City was, in fact, an extremely powerful, true treasure. Now that Yang Hongwu had seized Thousand Dragon Imperial City, it was naturally under his control. In Thousand Dragon Imperial City, Yang Hongwu was the only master. Unless the opponent's cultivation base broke the limit of Thousand Dragon Imperial City, they would be under the control of Thousand Dragon Imperial City. To break the limit of Thousand Dragon Imperial City, the opponent's cultivation base had to be above that of a universe overlord. Otherwise, everything was just empty talk. Obviously, Purple Dragon Patriarch's strength was far from that level. Although he was infinitely close to becoming a universe overlord, he hadn't passed the Thunder Trial, so he wasn't a universe overlord. He hadn't truly comprehended the great Tao of the universe that belonged to him. As for the undying puppets, although they were said to be immortal, in fact, under the suppression of absolute strength and absolute law, they couldn't resist at all. The powerful force sealed the undying puppets, making them unable to move. No matter how Purple Dragon Patriarch tried to control them, he couldn't make them move at all. The assassin, Purple Dragon Patriarch, was livid. Chapter 2370. I admit it, even the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons couldn't do anything to you. He's so powerful and can use the formation of 1,000 Dragons' imperial city. It's not an exaggeration to say that he's invincible in God domain. However, you're more terrifying and powerful than him. Almost no one is your match after seizing 1,000 Dragons' imperial city, but you're not unkillable. Now that I've fallen into this situation, I can only take you down with me. With that, Purple Dragon Patriarch moved and his aura rose. Everyone was very surprised to hear this. At this time, he was almost at the end of his rope, yet he could still say such words. What kind of trump card did he have that could take him down with Yang Hongwu? At this time, these undead puppets were his greatest trump card. However, they were suppressed and couldn't move at all. Purple Dragon Patriarch had lost his greatest trump card. Moreover, they didn't know that the real Emperor of 1,000 Dragons was just a puppet controlled by someone else. Yang Hongwu had defeated the person behind the Emperor of 1,000 Dragons, so how could he be afraid of Purple Dragon Patriarch? At this time, Zi Xintong and Lu Yu couldn't help but laugh. However, as the Purple Dragon Patriarch's aura increased, the aura of the old woman also increased. Tribulation, they were about to undergo tribulation. At this moment, everyone finally understood what they were thinking. These two people wanted to trigger the Thunder Trial, the Thunder Trial of a universe overlord, to take them down with them. This was a terrifying idea. In God domain, it was actually very difficult to trigger the Thunder Trial of a universe overlord, because God domain limited the power of a universe overlord. Therefore, there was no way to give birth to a universe overlord in this God domain. In other words, under normal circumstances, it was impossible to trigger the Thunder Trial of a universe overlord. However, it wasn't impossible to trigger the Thunder Trial of a universe overlord by force. This way, a special void would be created in the deity's realm. This special void would have no connection to the deity's realm. It would be a special space within the void. This was a lightning tribulation space. It was a special lightning tribulation space formed by forcefully passing the tribulation. This Thunder Trial space was extremely powerful. Even invincible overlords were unable to break this Thunder Trial space, let alone universe overlords. Only void overlords could break it. The lightning tribulation triggered by such a forceful tribulation was a lot scarier than the lightning tribulation of an invincible ruler. Moreover, the two of them had forcefully triggered the lightning tribulation. The result was obvious. Now, the entire 1,000 Dragons imperial city had been drawn into the lightning tribulation space. The void was shrouded in a terrifying aura. The two of them had forcefully triggered the thunder calamity of a universe overlord in the God domain. The laws of the God domain opened up a space and sent 1,000 Dragon imperial city into the thunder calamity space. Damn it! This bastard actually triggered the thunder punishment of a universe overlord. He really wants to perish together with us. None of the ancestors wanted to die. Compared to the Violet Dragon ancestor and the old woman, they were actually still very young and had a very long lifespan. They were not like the Violet Dragon ancestor and the old woman, who were already at the end of their lifespan. What was worse was that to trigger such a lightning tribulation, one had to pay a huge price. In fact, it was almost impossible to pass such a lightning tribulation successfully. It was a death sentence. Moreover, after the lightning tribulation had discovered their existence, Even if they were not the ones undergoing the tribulation, they would still be recognized as the ones undergoing the tribulation. This was because they had already reached the limit of the lightning tribulation of a universe overlord and could trigger it at any time. Their auras had been integrated into purple dragon ancestor's body. Therefore, this thunder trial of a universe overlord was, in fact, triggered by purple dragon ancestor and the old woman at the cost of their own lives. It became their thunder trial, a collective thunder trial. One person's lightning tribulation might have a chance of survival. Although it was very slim, at least there was a slight chance of survival. However, two people's lightning tribulation was almost equivalent to a death sentence. Now that it was a group lightning tribulation, it was almost a dead end. There was no chance of survival. Haha, thunder retribution. I have been planning this for a long time. This is my final trump card. Let me tell you, although I have attracted the thunder retribution and exhausted all my origin and vitality, I forgot to tell you that the secret technique I have cultivated is very special. It's called the art of nirvana. It can deceive the heavens and reverse rebirth. Although the possibility of success is not high, there is still a chance for survival. As long as I succeed, all of you will die. Moreover, your great Tao of the universe will be seized by me and become a great help after my rebirth. My strength will reach a new height, and I will become the overlord of the universe, an invincible overlord, and even the overlord of the void. Seeing that the lightning tribulation was about to fall, purple dragon ancestor's body began to dissipate. However, a strand of his divine consciousness condensed into a secret technique. This secret technique was purple dragon ancestor's trump card. He had obtained this secret technique in an ancient void. That ancient void was very terrifying, and he had entered it by accident. However, he was very lucky. After entering that void, although he only stayed for a moment, he made use of that little time to grab a fragment in that ancient void. This fragment was the fragment of this secret technique. At this time, even the old lady was stunned. She had not expected things to turn out this way. She had been used. Don't be happy too early. It's just a lightning tribulation. Do you really think that I'm afraid of it? Yang Hongwu smiled. In fact, his body had reached the limit. It was very difficult for him to improve. He had no way to trigger the lightning tribulation himself. It was also very difficult for him to trigger the lightning tribulation with the help of others. He did not know such a person. After all, no one would allow others to be present during the lightning tribulation. Even those who were very close to him would be on guard. As for Lu Yu, Zi Xintong, and the others, although they would not be on guard, their strength had not reached such a level. Chapter 2371. Yang Hongwu soared into the sky, and an ancient, majestic, and domineering furnace appeared in the void. This furnace was Yang Hongwu's devouring furnace. The power of the thunderbolt fell and was directly swallowed by the furnace. This scene made everyone dumbfounded. Devouring the power of the thunder trial was simply terrifying. It was a provocation to the great Tao. The thunder trial in the void seemed to be enraged, and the power of the thunderbolt became even more domineering and terrifying. Thunderbolts fell one after another, trying to kill Yang Hongwu, but they were all swallowed by the furnace without exception. The more powerful and domineering thunderbolts were swallowed bit by bit. The furnace seemed to be about to shatter, and the runes on the furnace trembled. But in the next moment, they slowly recovered. After the recovery, the runes and the furnace became even more powerful, domineering, and majestic. He was using the power of the thunder trial to improve himself, and then devouring the power of the thunder trial. He was nourishing himself with battle. Damn it, how could this be? Seeing this scene, everyone was actually frightened. This was definitely a provocation to the great Tao of Void. No one knew what would happen if the great Tao of Void was completely enraged. However, without exception, those who had delusions of going against the great Tao of Void did not have a good ending. In the face of this terrifying thunder trial, no one could bear it. After all, although Yang Hongwu used the devouring furnace to devour the power of the thunder trial, it did not mean that the power of the Thunder Trial was completely devoured by him alone. The remaining power of the Thunder Trial was also very terrifying. When the power of the Thunder Trial bombarded them, they did not feel good. All of them vomited blood. It was even more so for the Violet Dragon Ancestor and the Old Woman. The two of them had paid an enormous price. Their strength was already less than a tenth of what it was. Therefore, compared to the others, Purple Dragon Patriarch and the Old Woman were in the most difficult situation. They could not bear the aftermath of the Thunder Trial. On the contrary, the few young ancestors saw hope. They saw the hope of surviving the Thunder Trial. Once they survived the Thunder Trial, they could really become universe overlords and comprehend the great Tao of the universe to become universe overlords. This way, they would benefit from the disaster. If they relied on themselves, it would be extremely difficult for them to pass the Thunder Trial and become a universe overlord. However, if Yang Hongwu was unable to withstand the Thunder Trial, they would definitely die. The only thing they were worried about now was that if the Thunder Trial was blocked, it would be equivalent to them passing the Thunder Trial of a universe overlord. This was naturally a good thing. However, if they really angered the Great Way of the Void and attracted an even more terrifying punishment from the Great Way of the Void, then they would be in trouble. However, no one could say for sure. No one knew if the punishment of the Great Tao of the Void really existed. No matter what the situation was, they had no choice but to place their hopes on Yang Hongwu. After all, none of them wanted to die. As for Lu Yu and Zi Xintong, they had also endured a portion of the Tribulation Lightning's power. And this portion of Tribulation Lightning's power had been deliberately divided by Yang Hongwu, so it was under his control. The two women needed to borrow the power of the Lightning Tribulation to improve their cultivation. For the two women, it was a great benefit. In their hearts, they were also very clear. The portion of Tribulation Lightning's power that had been divided between them was still within their tolerance range. It was just enough to help them temper their bodies bit by bit and improve their cultivation. In fact, Yang Hongwu was also very worried. If they really couldn't bear the power of the lightning, Yang Hongwu still had a last resort. This was a trump card he had left behind. He could use the formation to enter the space-time of the Divine Talisman of Time. Yang Hongwu didn't believe that the power of the lightning would be so terrifying. If it was really that powerful, Yang Hongwu would accept it. At that time, if worse came to worst, he could just lead Zetian to where Zetian was and let Zetian bear it together. At this moment, the lightning tribulation in the sky seemed to have stopped. Was the lightning tribulation going to dissipate? No, it couldn't be. Although the Thunder Trial didn't descend, the pressure in the void became even more terrifying and overbearing. Under this terrifying pressure, Purple Dragon Patriarch and the others couldn't even stand up. They were suppressed to the ground by this overbearing pressure. Terrifying, too terrifying. This pressure shocked them to the extreme. This kind of power was no longer something they could bear. Among all the people present, only Yang Hongwu, Zi Xintong, and Lu Yu were able to stand. The others had no way to resist this terrifying pressure, let alone the power of the Thunder Trial. Their eyes were filled with despair. Even Purple Dragon Patriarch was afraid at this time. He didn't know if there was any possibility of reversing and cultivating in the face of this terrifying power. Although the secret technique was powerful, it was unknown whether it was real or not. Anyway, at this point, he had no other choice. There was no possibility of regret. After an unknown period of time, as if an era had passed, the Thunder Trial in the void finally descended. The power of this thunder tribulation had already formed a terrifying void destruction thunder. This was the limit of the universal law of lightning. When the Thunder Trial descended, Yang Hongwu's face changed. Terrifying, really terrifying. Boom! A terrifying loud sound was heard. The devouring furnace that Yang Hongwu condensed in the void couldn't withstand the Thunder Trial. Cracks began to appear on it. Yang Hongwu's face changed drastically. He felt that his body couldn't withstand the impact of the Thunder Trial. Under the impact of the Thunder Trial, his devouring furnace was about to reach its limit and couldn't withstand it. I'm going to die. Let's die together. At this time, Purple Dragon Patriarch uttered his last words. After saying this, Purple Dragon Patriarch's body couldn't withstand the thunder trial and exploded. The bodies of the others also couldn't withstand this terrifying power. Under this terrifying power, they all turned into blood mist. Only Zi Xintong and Lu Yu could withstand this power because of Yang Hongwu, but they had already reached their limit. Yang Hongwu, go. Leave alone. Don't worry about us. At this time, Zi Xintong said. Lu Yu nodded. Both of them knew that with Yang Hongwu's strength, it should be possible for him to leave. The reason why they could withstand this power was entirely because Yang Hongwu shared the pressure. The two of them were too weak. Yang Hongwu had no problem at all. Without their burden, Yang Hongwu could definitely leave easily. Chapter 2372. Yang Hongwu never thought that this would happen so suddenly. Even though he was prepared, he still suffered a great blow. At this time, the thunder tribulation in the void did not seem to have stopped. Instead, it became even more powerful. This time, it was no longer a thunder tribulation. Instead, it was a punishment in the void. It was a terrifying shadow of the void judgment spear. This shadow gradually began to condense. Under the deterrence of the void judgment spear, Yang Hongwu began to feel powerless. Damn it, how could this be? Yang Hongwu never thought that this would happen. He had seen the destruction spear and the judgment spear, but he had never seen the void judgment spear before. It was a terrifying existence. Was this the thunder tribulation of a void overlord? Yang Hongwu, a mere cultivator in the Tao Master Realm, was really flattered that he could enjoy such treatment. You two have entered my world. This time, it is really dangerous. If we can't overcome it, I'm afraid we will all die here. Yang Hongwu said to the two women. This was the biggest crisis he had ever encountered. He really did not expect such a thunder tribulation. Originally, he did not care about the thunder tribulation, but this time, he really miscalculated. He tried to arrange a formation to teleport away and enter the ancient space-time, but he was restricted and could not arrange a formation. This gave Yang Hongwu a headache. There was no way to activate the formation to enter the ancient space-time, and the power of teleportation was also restricted. This meant that his greatest trump card had been restricted. This was something he never expected. He seemed to have been targeted by a void overlord. Perhaps the will of this void was targeting him. Otherwise, how could such a situation occur? Did the will of this void see a threat? Did it think that he was a threat to this void? If so, it was not surprising. However, he was afraid that he was really in danger. Send the women away? This was impossible. He could not arrange a formation and activate it. He also had no way to send the women away. Let the women come out and fight with him? This was also impossible. Although their power had improved tremendously, they were still very weak. Their cultivation was far from reaching this level. They hadn't entered the level of universe overlords, so they were of no help to him. Unless their cultivation had reached the level of a universe overlord or even an invincible overlord, they would be of enough help to him. Otherwise, they would only be a burden. Now, his strength was not strong enough. The common people's great world had not reached the level of a void. It had not even reached the level of a great universe overlord. It couldn't accommodate the existence of invincible overlords. Even universe overlords could barely be accommodated, and one universe overlord was already the limit. In the end, his strength was too weak. If he was strong enough, such a situation would not have happened. He was not strong enough. At this moment, the two women heard Yang Hongwu's words and realized the seriousness of the matter. They saw the terrifying power in the void. That shadow seemed to be very, very scary. It was not something they could contend against. Yang Hongwu seemed to be powerless. They knew that if they stayed, they would not be able to withstand the impact of this terrifying power. The only thing they could do was to not be a burden to Yang Hongwu and give him enough time. If they entered Yang Hongwu's great world, they might be able to help Yang Hongwu and provide him with some strength. If it wasn't for the fact that Yang Hongwu's common people's great world had a limit to the number of experts it could contain, The more experts there were in Yang Hongwu's great world, the more powerful the common people's great world would be, and Yang Hongwu's own strength would also become stronger. At this moment, Yang Hongwu had already taken out all his means. He held an overbearing saber in his hand. It was the Hongmeng saber. There was a huge seal above his head. It was the common people's great seal. There was also an ancient gate. It was incomparably majestic. It was the Void Dragon Gate. In addition, although the Void Boat was not a complete Void Boat at its peak, it was still very powerful. There were also many other means that Yang Hongwu used. The shadow of the Void Judgment Spear was getting closer and closer. It was also becoming more and more solid. The terrifying power of the Judgment Law made Yang Hongwu unable to breathe. Even though he had already gathered a powerful force and had many treasures to protect him, it was still the same. His physical body had already been raised to the extreme. Between his eyebrows, he opened the common people's eye. Under his feet, there was the shadow of an ancient tree. These were the roots that were constantly absorbing a huge amount of power from the void. Longevity, life, creation divine tree. Although the power in Yang Hongwu's body was endless. In the face of the Void Judgment Spear, it was still greatly suppressed and could not resist. The defensive barrier formed by the many supreme treasures was constantly shrinking under the deterrence of the Void Judgment Spear. Damn it! If this continues, I really won't be able to withstand it. No, I still have a final trump card. I still have the ability. A mere void projection, even if it's the Void Will's Judgment Spear, won't be able to kill me. I won't die. At this moment, Yang Hongwu roared. The entire void erupted with a powerful force. At this moment, the power of the Thousand Dragon Divine Realm, Eternal Divine Realm, and common people's divine realm that Yang Hongwu had refined began to gather. The three rays of light merged together. In the void, the mighty Void Dragon Gate was truly formed. The complete Void Dragon Gate had appeared. It was an ancient supreme treasure, a truly powerful void treasure. Although it was not as powerful as the ancient Creation Divine Gate, it was still an incomparably powerful existence. Even if it had not recovered to its peak, it was still very terrifying and powerful. At this moment, Yang Hongwu's cultivation realm and aura were crazily rising. His strength had reached the pinnacle at this moment. The three rays of light merged together and entered Yang Hongwu's body. Yang Hongwu's cultivation instantly exploded. He broke through to the 9th level of Dao Master, the peak of Dao Master, and half a step away from becoming a great Dao Master. Rumble. There was a loud bang in the void, and a majestic aura erupted. The chi in Yang Hongwu's body exploded. His cultivation broke through the ancient shackles and broke through the bottleneck. Great Dao Master. At this moment, Yang Hongwu's cultivation had entered the level of a great Dao Master. Compared to before, his cultivation and battle strength had reached an unprecedented peak. At this moment, he was completely capable of killing great beings at the level of universe overlords. His eyes were bursting with terrifying godly light. Chapter 2373. Yang Hongwu raised both of his hands, and a war saber in his hands exploded with overbearing divine light. He was like an invincible war god, and his eyes were filled with fighting spirit. I won't die. No matter what kind of power it won't be able to kill me. A mere shadow won't be able to kill me. In the future, even if the real body of the Void Judgment Spear comes, it won't be able to kill me, Yang Hongwu roared. Yang Hong roared. All of his strength exploded to the extreme and slashed out with his blade. The vast power formed a saber light that seemed to be able to cut through everything. The saber collided with the Void Judgment Spear. Rumble. Two powerful forces collided. This was a collision of extreme power, a collision of destructive power. Yang Hongwu's strike could be said to have exceeded the limit of power. It was his strongest power. The two forces collided, and at the point of contact, there was a dazzling light. However, it was clear that Yang Hongwu's saber light was still inferior to the Void Judgment Spear. The power of the Void Judgment Spear was incomparable and unstoppable. Even if Yang Hongwu's cultivation had increased tremendously, and his cultivation had reached the level of a great Tao venerable, he was still unable to resist the power of the void judgment spear shadow. That was extreme power. It was the extreme of the laws of the void. Yang Hongwu's own cultivation was far from enough. Even if he had the support of the power of the divine realm, it was still not enough. It really wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to break the impact of the void judgment spear's power. Damn it! Yang Hongwu's eyes widened, and he roared. The veins on his forehead bulged, and he was like a furious lion. The power of the common people's great world was also activated by him. At this moment, in the common people's great world, the women felt Yang Hongwu's anger. The common people's divine realm and all living beings felt the need to rule over the true God, and they all contributed their power. Although they had never seen the true God of the common people's great world, they all felt a great danger. They seemed to understand that this was an extremely dangerous test, and if they didn't pass it, they would all be destroyed. Therefore, at this moment, the power of the common people's great world was condensed to the extreme. The common people's great seal had already erupted with an unprecedented power of laws. Common people's great seal, Void Dragon Gate. Yang Hongwu roared again. The dragons were the great Tao of the great Tao of the void. The dragons. The dragons was the great Tao. Each void dragon was a great Tao of the void nomological law. The dragons roared and charged at the spear of judgment, but to was tut. Therefore, at this time, the void dragon gate displayed its overbearing power. How dare a mere shadow, a projection, provoke me? Wong. An ancient voice sounded in the void. The roar of a dragon could also be heard. The roars of the dragons were the sound of the void dragon gate in the void. It meant that the void dragon gate had appeared again. In the endless void, many experts heard the sound. Void dragon roar? Is the void dragon gate reappearing? The void dragon gate has disappeared for countless eras. Now, it has finally reappeared. I wonder who has gained a recognition of a void dragon gate. These ancient powerhouses were looking forward to it. However, they also knew that the reappearance of the void dragon gate meant that the endless void was about to enter a new era. This meant that the great calamity had arrived. The true great void calamity had begun. It was a good thing and a bad thing for them. Some would be reborn, while others would be destroyed. Boom! At this time, the void dragon gate and the shadow of the judgment spear finally collided. At this moment, time seemed to have stopped. There was no magnificent explosion. There was no terrifying impact. However, the void was changing. The space started to collapse slowly. A dot appeared in the void. This dot was right in the middle of the collision between the void dragon gate and the shadow of the judgment spear. This started to spread. Wherever it spread, it collapsed and turned into nothingness. Time and space started to collapse. This was the truly terrifying power of destruction. With that dot as the center, it started to spread. Yang Hongwu widened his eyes. At this time, he no longer had any power. The moment the void dragon gate reappeared, all of his power had been extracted. At this time, he was like a powerless baby. He had no power to resist. If not for his strong body, his physical body would have collapsed. The space started to collapse. The shadow of the judgment spear also started to collapse. The void dragon gate was the real body. It was extremely powerful. It was the real body of a supreme void treasure. Of course, it would not collapse in the face of such overbearing power. At this time, a figure appeared in the void. That figure was formed by the shadow of the judgment spear. He was the judgment spear of the void. The void dragon gate and the life seal have finally appeared. It's a pity that you have yet to recover to your peak. Furthermore, you have already lost your true self and consciousness. Ultimately, you are still too weak. At this moment, the figure's gaze landed on Yang Hongwu. You have found him again. Do you want to help him? He is no longer the original him. It is impossible for him to recover to his peak. His true spirit has been shattered. The judgment spear of the void said, "He is still too weak." Roar. A dragon roar was heard. It was the voice of the Void Dragon Gate. It was the roar of the Void Dragon Gate. I'm just a projection. After all, a projection. If my real body came here, you would be destroyed by me again. However, my real body doesn't have that much energy now. You're no longer worthy of being my opponent. Even at your peak, you were no match for me, let alone now. You're already having a hard time dealing with my projection, let alone my real body, the Void Dragon Gate, and the incomplete life Great Seal. It's the same for you. Void Destruction's spear paused. It's even more impossible for you to pin your hopes on him. He's only a knight now. He's not even a universe overlord. He's not the same person he used to be. Void Dragon Sect, don't pin your hopes on him. The great trial of void space has already begun. Take care of yourself. I hope that the next time I see you, you'll still be in this endless void space. The next moment, the shadow of the judgment spear of the void disappeared. The entire space was shattered. Finally, the Void Dragon Gate turned into a ray of light and escaped into the body of Yang Hongwu. Seeing all this, Yang Hongwu was confused. Who was he? The Void Dragon Gate seemed to be related to him. How did the destruction spear of the void know him? Chapter 2374. Where did he come from? Who was he? Where is he going? This made Yang Hongwu even more confused. He didn't know what was going on. He took a deep breath. Now that his cultivation had improved tremendously, he decided to put everything else aside for the time being. From that guy's tone, it seemed that the Life Great Seal and the Void Dragon Gate had chosen him for some special reason. Perhaps they had recognized him in his previous life. But now, he was no longer who he used to be. His previous life was his previous life, and his current life was his current life. The improvement of his cultivation was his biggest gain this time. It's okay now. At this time, Yang Hongwu summoned Lu Yu and Zi Xintong. As for the other girls, Yang Hongwu had already sent an avatar into the space to accompany them. Now, Yang Hongwu also realized that it was not impossible for him to die. There was still a possibility of him dying. You've finally made a breakthrough in your cultivation, but it's still not enough. Zi Xintong and Lu Yu were very happy to see Yang Hongwu's breakthrough. At this time, the two girls realized that they were still too weak. Not only Yang Hongwu, but they were also too weak. They were far from enough. Even if they became universe overlords, they were still far from enough. We're going to enter the void space, Lu Yu said. Enter the void space? Well, after I've dealt with the matters in God domain, I'll enter the void space with you, Yang Hongwu said. No, I'm saying that we don't need you to accompany us when we enter the void space, Zi Xintong said. No, Yang Hongwu shook his head. The void space is too dangerous. I won't let you take the risk. What a joke. The void space was such a terrifying place. The two girls would face threats at the level of universe overlords or even invincible overlords if they entered the void space. Their current cultivation was only at the level of half-step universe overlords, so they were far from being able to contend with universe overlords. They weren't like him, who had many means to contend with and even kill universe overlords. Our cultivation will be limited if we stay by your side, Lu Yu said. Besides, we'll be a burden to you. So, after discussing with Zi Xintong, we've decided to enter the void space and take the opportunity to become universe overlords. Upon hearing that, Yang Hongwu looked at the two girls and said, You're too naive. The void space is full of dangers, and you're still too weak. If it's so easy to become universe overlords in the void space, Purple Dragon Ancestor and the others would have entered the void space long ago. Why would they still be cooped up in God domain? It's not that easy to become a universe overlord. However, it's not difficult for me to help you all become universe overlords. My cultivation level is now enough to kill universe overlords and seize their great paths of the universe. After I've dealt with the matters in God's domain and taken control of the entire God's domain, I'll seize suitable great paths of the universe for you all to break through the current bottleneck and enter the realm of great paths of the universe. Moreover, I plan to let each of you control a God's domain. That way, with the help of the power of the God's domain, Your strength will be directly enhanced to the point where you can contend against universe overlords. Yang Hongwu wanted to persuade the two girls. If he let them enter the void space alone, Yang Hongwu wouldn't feel at ease at all. Besides, the void space had undergone a great change. Just like what the Void Judgment Spear had said earlier, a great calamity had occurred in the void space. The arrival of the great calamity of the void space had made the entire void space even more terrifying than before. The two girls weren't even universe overlords now. If they entered the void space, wouldn't it be even more dangerous? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that there was only a slim chance of survival. Therefore, no matter what, Yang Hongwu didn't want the two of them to enter the void space. All right. The two girls were originally determined to enter the void space to look for opportunities to break through. However, when they saw Yang Hongwu's reaction, they knew that Yang Hongwu was worried about them. Moreover, they could see that Yang Hongwu was very determined. They were afraid that something had happened. Otherwise, he wouldn't be like this. Did something happen? Lu Yu asked. Yes. Yang Hongwu nodded. The great calamity of the void space has begun. The current void space is even more terrifying and dangerous than before. If you two aren't even universe overlords now, if you enter the void space, you'll be courting death. Now, even universe overlords don't dare to set foot in the void space. That's why I don't agree to let you enter the void space. After all, it's too dangerous. After I completely control Ice Domain and Demon Domain, I'll let you take control of Ice Domain and Demon Domain. You'll become the masters of these two domains. This way, your strength will increase tremendously. You'll reach the level of universe overlords, or even surpass them, Yang Hongwu said. Well, in that case, now that you've taken control of Thousand Dragon Domain and obtained the Void Dragon Gate, we've achieved our goal of coming to Thousand Dragon Domain. So, where are we going next? Zi Xintong asked. Originally, I planned to look for the time and space godly talisman, Yang Hongwu said. However, I don't know what dangers there will be in that space. The time and space godly talisman is too powerful. It's not something you and I can fight against. So, my main goal now is to completely control the 13 god domains. When I truly control the god domains and become the master of this god domain, perhaps my cultivation will break through to the level of universe overlord. That's good, Lu Yu said. Since you've already made up your mind, we'll follow you. If there's any danger, Zi Xintong and I will enter your common people great world. Okay, our next destination is Longing Canyon, Yang Hongwu said. Longing Canyon? Zi Xintong's eyes narrowed. Longing Canyon was a special secret place in the God Domain. After entering the God Domain, they had heard of this special secret place. That's right, Longing Canyon. Yang Hongwu nodded. It's rumored that even universe overlords will die if they enter Longing Canyon, said Lu Yu. It's the only place in the entire God Domain that doesn't suppress one's cultivation. Universe overlords can fully unleash their power there. Longing Canyon was the most special place in the entire God Domain. If they could control Longing Canyon, they might be able to uncover the secrets of the entire God Domain. I suspect that the core of the entire God Domain's origin is in Longing Canyon, Yang Hongwu said. I want to take a look. Perhaps then, we won't have to go through so much trouble to enter each God Domain and seize control of each God Domain. Chapter 2375. No matter how difficult it is, we can't back down, Yang Hongwu said as he opened up a formation. It was a teleportation formation in the void. Yang Hongwu's strength had increased tremendously, and he had gained control of several divine domains. If he didn't have a way to gain control of the entire divine domain in the Fascinated Canyon, then he could only refine the divine domains one by one. Of course, there was still a great enemy, and that was Zi Tian. Yang Hongwu suspected that Zi Tian should know about the Fascinated Canyon, and there was no reason for him not to go there. He might have been in seclusion before, but he was probably coming out now. Therefore, Yang Hongwu guessed that he wouldn't only have one enemy in the Fascinated Canyon. There might be another Zetion. After entering the teleportation array, they arrived at a canyon. It was a huge canyon, and there was a breathtaking bridge above it. The bridge was made of crystal, and it spanned across the entire fascinated canyon. The crystal bridge led to the center of the fascinated canyon. What a fine crystal bridge! This crystal bridge was dazzling and dazzling, causing people to be incomparably fascinated. This was the passage to the fascinated canyon. The fascinated canyon was very special, and the power of the cosmic laws was extremely overbearing. Ordinary people couldn't fly here and could only walk. The crystal bridge could shorten the distance and avoid many dangers. However, the crystal bridge wasn't that simple. On the crystal bridge, one's cultivation would be completely suppressed. On the crystal bridge, no one, not even an invincible overlord, would be able to exert their strength. They could only rely on their physical strength and willpower to move forward. There were even all kinds of illusions on the crystal bridge. This was the test to enter the fascinated canyon. If one's willpower wasn't strong enough, they wouldn't be able to gain the recognition of the crystal bridge. Then, they wouldn't be able to enter the fascinated canyon. After knowing this, Yang Hongwu was even more suspicious. Perhaps the fascinated canyon was the core of the divine domain. As long as one could enter the fascinated canyon, they would have the chance to become the ruler of the entire divine domain. Thinking of this, Yang Hongwu's heart was filled with excitement. The fascinating canyon is incomparably mysterious. Even this threshold is something that ordinary people would find difficult to pass through. Although there are no fatal dangers on the crystal bridge, it would be extremely embarrassing if one were to be unable to even pass through the crystal bridge, Lu Yu said. That's right. The few of them raised their heads and looked over. There are already several people on the crystal bridge. These people were here to challenge the crystal bridge. However, these people were wearing black guards' uniforms, and their auras were of the demonic Tao. They were cultivating demonic Tao. People of the demonic domain. Zi Xintong said, they're from the Saint Devil clan. Zi Tian is here. I can sense his aura. He's on the crystal bridge. Even without Zi Xintong's reminder, Yang Hongwu also noticed that there was Zi Tian's qi on the crystal bridge. It seemed that Zi Tian had reached the end of the crystal bridge and would soon enter the fascinated canyon. Obviously, the people guarding the edge of the crystal bridge were Zi Tian's people. These great beings from the demonic domain were guarding this place and didn't allow others to enter. He's got guts. He dares to stop others from entering the crystal bridge. Yang Hongwu felt a powerful and domineering force at the entrance of the crystal bridge. This was probably the guardian of the crystal bridge. However, Yang Hongwu was curious. Why didn't the other party make a move? Although this person wasn't an invincible overlord, ordinary overlords were definitely not his match. He was probably invincible under the invincible overlords. We should hurry, Zi Xintong said. If Zi Tian gets ahead of us and steals the opportunity, we'll be in trouble. Universe Book Network. There's no hurry. Zi Tian is indeed powerful, but it won't be easy for him to gain the recognition of the divine realm. After all, Zi Tian is a demonic cultivator. He's different from me. Yang Hongwu was very clear in his heart. It wasn't that devil cultivators couldn't be recognized by the realm of the gods. If that was the case, there wouldn't be a devil realm continent in the realm of the gods. Because of this, devil cultivators, or in other words, experts of the devil race, could also inherit this realm of the gods. For truly powerful cultivators, once their cultivation reached a certain level, there would no longer be a distinction between righteous and demonic powers. When one's cultivation reached a certain level, there was only the difference between oneself and the enemy. Of course, this was also due to the difference in the concept of the great Tao of the void. Anyone who clashed with the great Tao of the void that one cultivated was an enemy. For example, I cultivate the great Tao of the void, while you cultivate the great Tao of the void that destroys living beings. These two great Tao of the void are absolute opposites. If you want to attain Tao, you have to destroy life. If you want to destroy my great Tao of the void, you'll be my enemy. In this way, we'll be in complete opposition. It's either you die or I die. Only in this situation would they be in absolute opposition. When one's cultivation reached a certain level, if such a situation didn't occur, cultivators at that level wouldn't be in complete opposition. This realm of the gods seemed to have a special connection with him. It didn't seem particularly difficult for him to become the master of these realms of the gods. However, Zetian had to expend a lot of effort to conquer them. Even when he really conquered the realms of the gods, he didn't completely grasp the origins of those realms of the gods. Therefore, Yang Hongwu wasn't worried at all that Zetian would be able to become the true master of this realm of the gods in such a short period of time. Besides, the Yearning Canyon wasn't that simple. Yang Hongwu vaguely sensed that there was a powerful being at the core of the Yearning Canyon. It was probably a great being at the level of an invincible overlord. Although Zetian was extremely powerful, it wasn't easy for him to defeat an invincible overlord. After all, Zetian's cultivation hadn't reached the level of the void. As for whether he had reached the level of an invincible overlord, Yang Hongwu wasn't sure. Of course, Zetian's cultivation had definitely reached the level of an overlord in the universe. Zetian was now a powerful demon master at the level of an overlord in the universe. Let's go and take a look. Yang Hongwu and Lu Yu walked slowly. They arrived at the entrance of the Crystal Bridge. "Stop! Who are you?" one of them said. "The Yearning Canyon is now closed. No one is allowed to enter. Leave quickly, or we won't be polite." "What's the point of talking to them? If they don't leave, we'll just kill them," another person said. "What arrogance," Zi Shintong said. "I like to see how you're going to kill me." "Princess? You're the princess?" another person exclaimed, his eyes wide. He had seen through Zi Shintong's identity. "What? This person is the princess who ran away from home. She's the sister of Demon Master. Are you sure you're not mistaken?" one of them asked. "No, I'm not mistaken. She's the sister of Demon Master, the mysterious princess. I've seen a good portrait of her." Chapter 2376. What princess? Get out of my way. While they were still in shock, Zi Shintong waved her hand and pushed them to the side. Then she walked onto the crystal bridge. Yang Hongwu and Lu Yu followed her. "Should we stop them?" one of them asked. "Stop what? What do you know? That's the princess. If we stop them, we won't be able to bear the consequences," another person said. "But the other two aren't her. Who cares? Those two have a close relationship with the princess. It's not something you and I can interfere with. Moreover, did you notice? That man is very majestic. He has a terrifying aura. If you and I really attack him, I'm afraid our lives will be in danger." "Boss, it can't be. Danger to our lives? That person has only just become a great Tao venerable. Our cultivation realms are much higher than theirs. My sixth sense has never been wrong. It's better to be safe than sorry. Even if we let them in, we won't be able to do anything. Even if the demon lord is unhappy, we'll be scolded at most. However, if my guess is correct, once we attack that man, we won't be able to keep our lives. You should consider which one is more important." Yang Hongwu naturally didn't know about their conversation. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care. At this time, Yang Hongwu and the other two had already stepped onto the crystal bridge. After entering the bridge, the two women felt a strong pressure. They couldn't use their cultivation at all. They were completely like ordinary people. This made them very surprised. Yang Hongwu was the same. After entering the crystal bridge, he couldn't use his magic power. The sudden change naturally made him unable to adapt. If he forcefully used his magic power, he would suffer a backlash. His magic power will be swallowed by the crystal bridge. However, when Yang Hongwu used the Nine Heavens Divine Dragon technique, the pressure was reduced. Although there was still some pressure, to Yang Hongwu, such pressure was negligible. The crystal bridge was very mysterious. However, it didn't seem to have much effect on him. This made Yang Hongwu very surprised. "Come, take my hand." Yang Hongwu took the two women's hands and formed a protective shield with his spiritual power, enveloping the two women. This way, the two women would not be suppressed by the rules of the crystal bridge. However, this would consume a lot of Yang Hongwu's spiritual power, but it was all worth it. You aren't suppressed by the laws? Zi Xintong asked. A little. It's not a big deal, Yang Hongwu said. Will this consume a lot of your energy? Lu Yu asked. You don't have to worry about this at all. Although it will consume a little, it won't be a problem. This bridge looks very long, but it won't consume much of my spiritual power to cross it. Yang Hongwu smiled faintly. After he activated his devouring furnace, he could still absorb void yuan qi on the crystal bridge. In addition to the power of the fortune divine tree, he had an endless supply of the power of fortune. The restrictions placed on him by this crystal bridge were almost non-existent. Ordinary people would be suppressed when they entered here. However, it was of no use to Yang Hongwu. Soon, the three of them arrived at the center of the crystal bridge. They were too lazy to listen. At this moment, they saw a few people moving forward slowly on the crystal bridge in front of them. These were the first people the three of them saw trying to cross the crystal bridge after entering the crystal bridge. Among these people, one of them was from the Saint Demon clan. He was very powerful and was actually a universe overlord. In this god domain, Yang Hongwu saw very few great beings at the level of universe overlords. No, it should be said that they were universe demon masters. Although the other two were not from the demonic path, their cultivation levels were very domineering, and their physical bodies were incomparably strong. They were great beings who had entered the path with their physical bodies. Although their cultivation levels were only half-step universe overlords, their physical bodies were comparable to those of true universe overlords. One could imagine how powerful these two were. Tyrannical. This was extremely tyrannical. On the bodies of the two of them, there were ancient runes. This was a method of tempering one's physical body. Although this physical body training technique was not comparable to his immortal dragon body or devouring furnace technique, it was still quite terrifying. There were not many who could make their physical bodies break through to the level of a universe overlord at the half-step universe overlord level. Hey, I didn't expect someone to catch up with us. 3 people. Not bad, not bad. Their physical bodies are strong enough. However, these 2 women don't have strong physical bodies. How can they be so fast? The 2 were very surprised to see Zi Xintong and Lu Yu. As for Yang Hongwu, they could see that Yang Hongwu's physical body was as strong as theirs. Saint Demon clan? The old ancestor of the Saint Devil clan was shocked to see Zi Xintong. As an old ancestor of the Saint Devil clan, he naturally recognized her. Imperial clan princess? Zi Yuan Kuei, Zi Xintong said. Is that the only universe overlord of the Saint Demon clan? Zi Yuan Kuei? Zi Xintong. You're the Zi Xintong that Lord Devil Lord is looking for? No, that brat is the sworn enemy of my Saint Devil clan. The sworn enemy of Lord Devil Lord? Yang Hongwu? After seeing Yang Hongwu's face, Zi Yuan Kuei narrowed his eyes. Of course, he recognized them. Yang Hongwu and Zi Xintong's appearances were common among the higher-ups of the Saint Demon clan. That was why he recognized them. When they saw that Yang Hongwu was using his power to protect the 2 women, they were stunned. Spiritual power? He can use his spiritual power. This person could actually use his spiritual power on the crystal bridge. This was unbelievable. How can you use your spiritual power? The 2 of them blocked the path of Yang Hongwu and the other 2. Get out of the way, Yang Hongwu said with a snort. As long as you tell us how to use our spiritual power on the crystal bridge, we will get out of the way, Hu Huan said. That's right, Hulu said with a nod. If you don't get out of the way, do you want to die? Yang Hongwu's eyes flashed coldly. Against these 2, Yang Hongwu wouldn't be merciful. Although their bodies were strong, he didn't take them seriously. Haha, little guy, you are so arrogant. This is the crystal bridge of the Enchanted Canyon. Even if you can use your Dharma power, it is limited. What's more, you have to protect these 2 little girls. Do you really think you can deal with us 2 brothers? Hu Huan laughed and said. He did not take Yang Hongwu's threats seriously at all. If you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Yang Hongwu's eyes flashed coldly. He punched out. This was the 10-direction killing fist that Yang Hongwu hadn't used for a long time. Chapter 2377. Both of them had outstanding strength and strong willpower. They were definitely not simple characters. Ordinary illusions would not affect them at all. However, it was different this time. They were on the Crystal Bridge. Other than the power of their physical bodies, all other powers were restricted by the laws of the Rapture Canyon. Therefore, this murderous illusion had a great impact on them. At this moment, the two of them seemed to be in a terrifying illusion amidst countless piles of corpses. Although both of them had strong physical bodies and strong willpower, their willpower was not the focus of their cultivation. In this aspect, there was still room for improvement. What terrifying strength! This fist technique is incomparably mysterious. It can actually lure people into an illusion. Moreover, this is the Crystal Bridge. Ordinary people can't use magic power at all, but he can do it. Ziyuan Kuei was extremely shocked. It was no wonder that Yang Hongwu could become Zi Tian's enemy and was the target of his attention. Originally, he wanted to take down Yang Hongwu directly. However, at this moment, he knew that he might not be able to take down Yang Hongwu even if he made a move himself. He might even be in danger now. If Yang Hongwu really made a move on him, then he would be in trouble. As a great ancestor of the holy demon clan in the domain of the gods, his cultivation had reached the level of a universe overlord. How could he be so simple? He would not be like Hu Huan and the other two and be foolish enough to make a move easily. Before he knew the other party's trump card, he would definitely not take the risk easily. He knew that Yang Hongwu was the sworn enemy of Demon Lord Zi Tian of the Holy Demon Clan. How could he make a move so easily? Demon Lord Zi Tian's strength was originally not as strong, but the speed of his cultivation was extremely terrifying. After he obtained the memories and power of his previous life, his cultivation improved by leaps and bounds. Now, his cultivation was about to reach the level of an invincible demon lord. One must know that when he first entered the demon domain, his cultivation was still very weak. He could easily kill him, but now he had far surpassed him. Although his cultivation realm had not reached the level of an invincible demon lord, his true combat strength could contend against an invincible demon lord. Even an ordinary invincible demon lord would be killed by him. Zi Yuanke didn't know exactly how strong he was and what realm he was at. However, he was certain that the current demon master Zi Tian's battle prowess was much, much stronger than his own. If they were to fight, Zi Yuanke would likely not be able to last a few rounds and would very likely be killed very quickly. Since that was the case, if Yang Hongwu could make Devil Master Zi Tian so fearful, how could his strength possibly be so simple? Therefore, Ziyuan Kuei did not act rashly. When he was about to test the waters, the Hu brothers had already made their move. This made him pleasantly surprised. However, in the next moment he was shocked. Yang Hongwu's strength was too strong and too domineering. On this crystal bridge, he was suppressed by the laws, but he could still unleash such a terrifying killing punch. He could use his own magic power without restraint. In this way, on this crystal bridge, who could be his opponent? Now, what he was worried about was whether Yang Hongwu would attack him. If Yang Hongwu attacked him, Zi Yuankuei really didn't have any confidence that he could block his attack. In just a few rounds, the Hu brothers were already defeated by Yang Hongwu. Then, Yang Hongwu looked at Zi Yuankuei. Universe Listening Book Network, Zi Yuankuei, the old ancestor of the Saint Devil clan. You're really surprising. Do you also want to fight against me? Yang Hongwu took a deep breath. He had imprisoned Hu Huan and Zi Yuankuei, but didn't kill them. However, he had obtained their submission. The two of them had already recognized him as their master and called out the physical body techniques that they cultivated. Originally, Yang Hongwu planned to kill the two of them. However, he suddenly thought of his own common people's great world. This guy had already recognized him as his master and offered up his soul. He was no longer a threat. Therefore, Yang Hongwu was not particularly worried. He sent the two of them into the common people's great world to improve it. In the common people's great world, there were not many physical body experts. When the two of them entered the common people's great world, it would be of great help to the development of the physical body cultivation of the common people's great world in the future. His own inner world had to constantly improve. It was impossible for it to remain stagnant. As long as his cultivation continued to improve, the common people's great world would also improve. However, previously his cultivation was too weak and his physical body was not strong enough. The common people's great world had also reached its limit. However, it was different now. His cultivation had improved and his physical body had strengthened once again. Naturally, the common people's great world had also improved greatly. However, now, the common people's great world still could not allow the birth of a universe overlord. It had to wait until his cultivation had broken through before it could allow the existence of a universe overlord. Only when his cultivation had reached the universe overlord level could his world allow the existence of a universe overlord. Otherwise, it would exceed the limit. It was the same for any world. If a world master's strength was not as strong as a living being in the world, how could the world withstand it? This was impossible. Yang Hongwu's current situation was like that. The limit of the world was half-step universe overlord. This was because Yang Hongwu was very special. Although his cultivation had not reached half-step universe overlord level, his strength had far surpassed that of a universe overlord. Therefore, he was able to allow the existence of half-step universe overlords, and there was more than one of them. Generally speaking, the total power of the inner world of any great being would definitely not exceed that of a world master by too much. Yang Hongwu was an exception. His common people's great world, in terms of overall power, had already surpassed that of a universe overlord by too much. However, Yang Hongwu's cultivation had just become a great Dao Knight. This was quite terrifying. This situation had its advantages and disadvantages. The advantage was that the more powerful the world was, the more power he could control as a world master. In battle, the assistance he could obtain would also be greater. However, the disadvantage was that this was his life inner world. If the life inner world was too powerful and beyond the control of its master, then it would be an extremely terrifying matter. If the life inner world were to backfire, then as the master, he would most likely be doomed eternally. Of course, Yang Hongwu had enough confidence. He even wanted to try to suppress this Zi Yuankui, the universe demon master, and seal him in his common people's great world. Perhaps this would allow his common people's great world to reach a higher level. After all, his common people's great world was, in fact, still incomplete. Yang Hongwu had started to evolve by referring to the original primitive world. Chapter 2378. Of course, I wouldn't dare. Your great name is like thunder in my ears. Of course, I wouldn't dare to attack you. Please? At this time, Ziyuan Kuei's words were out of Yang Hongwu's expectations. This is really unexpected. As Zi Tian's subordinate, you actually don't have any thoughts of attacking me? You have to know that Zi Tian is my archenemy. He can't wait to eat me alive. Yang Hongwu narrowed his eyes and looked at Zi Yuanke. Cough, cough. Mister, you must be joking. My demon lord isn't that kind of person. He's very friendly to Mister. He often tells us how powerful Mister is and how strong you are. You're one of the few people that he can praise. Zi Yuanke couldn't help but say, I'm one of the few people that gave him a headache and made him hate me to the bone. No matter what you say today, I won't let you leave. Are you going to surrender yourself? Or do you want me to attack you? Yang Hongwu said. Hearing those words, Zi Yuanke was extremely depressed. He had already taken a step back, but he didn't think that Yang Hongwu would really not let him go. Looking at the current situation, if he really attacked, he wouldn't have much luck. Mister, why do you have to be like this? I don't want to be your enemy. After all, your strength is tyrannical. Furthermore, if we fight here, I know that I'm not your opponent. However, this isn't a good thing for you. Zi Yuanke, opened his mouth and said, "Furthermore, the princess is here. It's not good to fight the princess. What you say sounds better than singing. No matter how eloquent your mouth is, you won't be able to escape death today. Of course, if you surrender, I can spare your life. I can even give you a chance." Yang Hongwu looked at Ziyuan Kuei. If he voluntarily surrendered, it would save him a lot of trouble. In reality, Yang Hongwu wanted Zi Tian to become a demon lord of his common people's great world. However, that was impossible. How could Zi Tian be controlled by him? That was impossible. Submit? Mister, that's impossible. I will never betray Lord Demon Lord. If you insist on fighting with me, I can only fight with my life on the line and fight to the death. At this moment, Ziyuan Kuei's eyes shone with a frightening, cold light. I, Ziyuan Kuei, am the strongest person in the Saint Demon clan under the Lord Demon Master. Even now, my strength is being suppressed on the Crystal Bridge. However, I'm not completely powerless. I'm not like those two trash. At this moment, Ziyuan Kuei was no longer speaking in a submissive manner. Instead, his voice became sharp and fierce. Not trash. Yang Hongwu smiled and said, "Although your strength is not bad, now that you have no spiritual power, you are a piece of trash. If I want to kill you on this crystal bridge, it will be as easy as killing a chicken." After saying that, Yang Hongwu made his move. His magic power condensed into a huge hand, covering the sky and covering the sun as it grabbed towards Ziyuan Kuei. At this moment, although Ziyuan Kuei's physical body was strong and his strength was strong, he was still under the suppression of the laws on the Crystal Bridge. He could not display his strength at all. At this moment, he could not display his strength at all. He could not even display 10% or 20% of his strength. He was directly grabbed by Yang Hongwu's huge hand that was condensed out of mana. Like a little chick, he had no room to resist. Aggrieved, too aggrieved, to think that he, an old ancestor of the Saint Demon clan, would be humiliated like this on the Crystal Bridge. Without spiritual power, he was nothing in front of Yang Hongwu. At this moment, Ziyuan Kuei's heart was filled with hatred. If it was under normal circumstances, his spiritual power would be overwhelming. Although Yang Hongwu was Demon Lord Zi Tian's sworn enemy and had a frightening talent, his cultivation realm was only at the Dao Master realm. A mere Dao Master's cultivation realm was like an ant. God knew how many of them he could kill with a single breath. The number of experts who had died in his hands was uncountable. What do you think? Yang Hongwu stared at him and said, "If you are not willing to submit, then this day next year will be the anniversary of your death." In the face of the threat of life and death, Ziyuan Kuei was not afraid. However, in reality, he did not want to die. He wanted to break through to a higher level and explore the wider void. His strength was that of a universe overlord, and he could already enter the endless void. However, due to various reasons, he had never really explored the endless and unknown void. Even when he took the risk to enter the void, he only went to the edge, not to mention the other void lands. He had only been cultivating in the infernal domain. In order to guard the infernal domain, he had been guarding the infernal domain. He even thought that he could become the lord of the demon zone and control the entire demon zone, allowing his strength to rise to a higher level. However, he did not expect that the lord of the demon zone would not be him. He waited for countless years, but in the end, he did not become the lord of the demon zone. Even when he became the strongest old ancestor in the demon zone, it was still the same. He even lost faith in the demon zone and was disappointed. Therefore, at this moment, his heart was fluctuating so greatly. To live or to die? This was an extremely difficult question to choose. Facing some people, when faced with such a choice, they would not hesitate to choose to live, to give up their dignity, to give up everything, to drag out an ignoble existence. However, although Ziyuan Kuei was a member of the demon path, he was in a dilemma when faced with this question. In reality, he did not want to die. However, he did not want to die for the lord of the demon zone. He couldn't accept it. He couldn't accept it. Of course, he was also unwilling to submit to Yang Hongwu, who was merely a Tao master. At this moment, Yang Hongwu did not know that Zi Yuankui had so many thoughts in his mind. His goal was to subdue Zi Yuankui and make him the lord of the demon path in his common people's great world. The common people's great world needed to be perfected. In order to become even more powerful, the demonic path had to be supplemented. In the beginning, Yang Hongwu wanted to make Zi Xintong the lord of the demon path in his common people's great world. However, after thinking about it, this was not suitable. Now, Zi Xintong had already been recognized by him and would become his woman sooner or later. Thus, it was not suitable for her to become the lord of the demon path in the common people's great world. Once she became the lord of a plane in his inner world, she would be under his control. Her life and death would be under his control. To Yang Hongwu, this was not fair. How could his woman be like this? However, at this moment, his common people's great world needed to be greatly improved. The establishment of the demon path was imperative. Once the demon path was established in the common people's great world, then the common people's great world would undergo a huge change and be greatly improved. This was what Yang Hongwu sensed. In reality, Yang Hongwu vaguely understood why there was a demon zone in the 13 god regions. To truly become the overlord of the void, there was one Tao that was indispensable. In the inner world, if the demon path did not exist, then after one's strength reached the invincible overlord level, it was impossible to achieve the great Tao of the void. Chapter 2379. Seems like you're not willing to submit. Since you're not willing to submit, you can only die. Yang Hongwu's eyes shot out a cold light. Although he wanted a suitable candidate to be the lord of demon Tao in the common people's great world, it wasn't impossible to find such a person. Although Zi Yuankui was a good candidate, he might not necessarily want Zi Yuankui to be the lord of demon Tao. It was also possible to change to another person. In this endless void, he didn't believe that he couldn't find a suitable candidate. If it really didn't work, he could nurture one. Although it would take some time, it wasn't impossible. Wait. Seeing that Yang Hongwu's powerful strength was about to kill him, Zi Yuankui hesitated. He didn't want to die. At least, he didn't want to die like this. Do you have any last words? Yang Hongwu said coldly. Since this fella had rejected him previously, it wouldn't be so easy now. I'm willing to submit to you. However, I have a request. Zi Yuankui looked at Yang Hongwu and said, in his heart, it wasn't easy for him to be willing to submit to him. After all, he was a supreme expert. In this deity domain, he was a top expert. It could be said that there were very few people who were stronger than him in the 13 deity domains. It was definitely worth it to be able to obtain his loyalty. However, it was impossible to obtain his loyalty so easily. He had to pay a price. If it was that easy, it would seem that he was too worthless. There's no need for a request. I gave you a chance just now, but you didn't grab it. Therefore, you have no choice now. Before this, I have already sentenced you to death. Yang Hongwu took action at this moment, not giving Zi Yuankui a chance to speak. His spiritual power exploded and crushed Zi Yuankui's physical body. His great Tao of the universe was extracted. The crystal bridge in the Divine Canyon exploded with a force that wanted to devour Zi Yuankui's origin and great Tao of the universe. However, Yang Hongwu snorted. With a thought, a powerful talisman was formed in the void. This talisman blocked the force of the crystal bridge. In fact, if it was earlier, Yang Hongwu really did not plan to kill Zi Yuankui. After all, Yang Hongwu's own common people's great world needed the master of the devil path. This Zi Yuankui was indeed a pretty good choice. However, in that instant, Yang Hongwu sensed that someone had arrived at the entrance of the crystal bridge. Although this person's strength was far inferior to Zi Yuankui's, he was still a genius of the demonic path. Furthermore, he was extremely young. This person's demonic Tao talent was definitely above Zi Yuankui's. If he could obtain Zi Yuankui's demonic Tao power of the universe, then this person's strength would improve by leaps and bounds. he would be able to break through the bottleneck and enter the universe demon master level in a very short time. Currently, this person was only a great Tao demon venerate. It was only a matter of time before he became a universe demon master. Moreover, the interesting thing was that this little fellow was actually a little girl. She was younger than him, which surprised Yang Hanwu. What shocked him even more was that this little girl gave him an extremely close feeling. There seemed to be his bloodline within this little girl's body. This was something that Yang Hongwu could not understand. Why would she have his bloodline? Could it be that this little girl was his daughter? Or perhaps she was his sister? This explanation made more sense. Number 5. She couldn't be his granddaughter, right? Yang Hongwu laughed bitterly. However, when he saw this little girl, he would know the cause and effect of this matter. No matter what, she was Yang Hongwu's best choice to become the master of the demonic path in the common people's great world. Shall we continue now? Seeing Yang Hongwu deal with Zi Yuan Kuei so easily, Zi Xintong and Lu Yu were not surprised. However, Zi Xintong was a little worried. Since Zi Tian had also come to the Divine Yearning Canyon, this time they would probably have to face Zi Tian. The current Zi Tian was far from the Zi Tian of the past. On the other side of the Divine Yearning Canyon, Zi Xintong could faintly sense Zi Tian's powerful strength. The current Zi Tian's strength had probably reached an unfathomable level. Compared to when she left the demonic region, Zi Tian's current strength was much, much stronger. In other words, it had reached a level that she could not imagine. Originally, Zi Xintong thought that as her strength increased, she would be able to fight against Zi Tian. At the very least, the difference would not be too great. However, now that she had sensed Zi Tian's strength, she understood the difference between her and Zi Tian. She was definitely not Zi Tian's opponent. She knew her own limits. Since Zi Tian was so strong, could Yang Hongwu fight against him? This was an unknown matter. No, wait a moment. We are waiting for someone. Yang Hongwu said, waiting for someone? This caused the two girls to be stunned. Waiting for who? A little girl. Yang Hongwu said, you mean you were waiting for a little girl? Waiting for a little girl on the crystal bridge of the Divine Yearning Canyon? Zi Xintong asked, who is this little girl? Why do we need to wait for her here? I don't know. Yang Hongwu said, she should be cultivating the demonic Tao. However, she is very special. She seems to be related to me. However, I have never seen her aura. It is related to me. Her aura is related to you, and she is cultivating the demonic Tao. These words were very puzzling. The two girls fixed their eyes on Yang Hongwu. You will know when we arrive. Because you don't have transcendence energy, you can't sense it. However, I have transcendence energy, so I can clearly sense the little girl's aura. It won't be long before the little girl reaches here. Yang Hongwu clearly felt that although the little girl's strength was not bad, her physical body was not strong. However, what surprised him was that the little girl could use a little transcendence energy. It was precisely because of this that the little girl could catch up so quickly. This was the only person he had seen besides himself who could use transcendence energy on this crystal bridge. Even Zi Xintong and Lu Yu could not do it, but the little girl could. Moreover, the little girl had a very familiar aura. This made Yang Hongwu wonder if the little girl was really related to him by blood. However, Yang Hongwu was very sure that he had never seen such a little girl before. Soon, the little girl arrived not far from Yang Hongwu's position. Yang Hongwu and Zi Xintong had already seen the little girl's appearance. The little girl's face was very delicate, and her aura was ethereal. Although there was a trace of demonic qi on her body, it made people feel very comfortable. Moreover, her talent was very amazing and very outstanding. If some big shots saw her, they would definitely accept her as a disciple. You are here. Yang Hongwu looked at the little girl and said, I have been waiting for you for a long time. You? The little girl looked at Yang Hongwu with surprise, but her expression seemed to be hiding something. Then, she said with a cold face, who are you? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.